Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new day broadcast where we delve into transformative dialogues about social justice and the voices leading the charge for social reforms. Here at a noonday, we explore the intersections of politics, culture, and tradition with the leaders who are reshaping our world for the better. A new day focuses on critical dialogues around social justice with emphasis on gender justice to influence policies and contribute to societal shifts. Our guest today is Dr. Kans- Kayisi
Khanyisile.
Khanyisile Litchfield-Tshabalala. Dr. Khanyisile joined Parliament after leaving the Navy. She's a scholar of Africa. She's so jam packed with wisdom. But let me tell you a little bit more about her. And then, as the discussion or conversation unfolds, you will get to know this powerhouse better than I can introduce her. So, she has a 16-year public service career in human resources, including gender mainstreaming, equal opportunities, and equity, as well as institutional cultural dynamics and change. Dr. Khanyisile brings over a decade of research experience to the table, particularly in the areas of transformation, organizational development, and human or capital development. For the last 9 years, she has championed tax justice in the fight against illicit financial flows from Africa, including the gendering of tax justice and IFFs, public accountability, stakeholder development, social justice, and research. Dr. Khanyisile currently holds the esteemed position of chairperson at the African Parliament Network on illicit financial flows and taxation. This network, comprising both serving and former members of parliament from 49 African states, is a testament to her leadership and influence. And in fact, in her leadership capacity, she will such influence that recently she met with the president of Burkina Faso. We will go into that a little bit more after I start talking to her and to just tell us a little bit about that visit. But that just to tell you that this guest today is so diversely versed with, enormously versed with the continent of Africa and its political system. She has researched the African continent for thousands of years before the Common Era BCE. To this end, she has just completed a book on, and I will let her say the name of the book. Mama Kahisile, can you tell us the name?
Ubulungisa.
Ubulungisa, Deconstructing Gender in African Spirituality, the Untold Stories of African Warrior Women, which was edited by a South African historian working for the history department at the University of Geneva. And I will let her say the name of the South African historian who edited the book, Dr.
Zanele Khatebe.
Thank you. I just don't want to be disrespectful by mispronouncing these names. That's
I
why I
know.
keep leaving them with you. But I don't know whether you can tell because I am so excited to have you on here. But before she say a little bit, before she get into her, you know, before she get into the floor, I would like to play the drum sound so that Mama Kayinsile can pay tribute and homage to the ancestors. So let me go ahead and just play for us the drum beat of the soil of Africa. Okay. Um,
Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you so much. I pay homage to the African matriarchal spirit. I pay homage to the queen mothers, the queens, the princesses, the grandmothers, the mothers, the maidens, and the girls of this continent who have walked before us, who have left us such a heritage and a wealth of knowledge to disrupt the patriarchal script that patriarchy is synonymous with the African continent. I will not mention them individually, but I hope that during the conversation, some of them will come up. And of course, I pay homage to my maternal, the Dlamini. They are together with Gunene and Ngosi all the way back. And I also pay homage to my paternal, the Litchfields. I always emphasize, I call them in pre Christian, pre capitalist, pre imperialist Europe, when Europe was still in spirituality. Thank you. Togosa, Tamaku, we say in South Africa.
Okay, great, great, great. That was awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I follow you and I see you always show respect to the ancestors. And I'm glad to be a part of this conversation, to be a part of this reawakening of the African spirit, to be a part of this time. It's a new day, a new season. Yeah, I got the I don't know what I should refer to it as call, but me too was it came to me to start a new day repeatedly. 10 years ago the call became louder in my spirit, that a reawakening needs to happen in our consciousness.
Mm.
And now I'm being privileged. I believe it was the ancestors, the gods of the universe, the most divine, the higher power, higher intelligence, however, whoever is listening, know them. But to start, yeah, a new day. And so I am so you know, excited. I'm so delighted. I'm to be sitting here with you. I appreciate the calling. I appreciate the privilege. I was talking to my ancestors this morning. I was like, today I'm going to be talking to one of the daughters of the continent, and I'll be part of unearthing your legacy that have been buried for centuries. And I'm glad to, and I'm grateful, I'm humble for that privilege. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us on a new day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on your platform,
Of
Priscilla.
course. Of course. We've been planning to do this since I think May, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned you a few times in previous broadcasts, and I'll be like, my scholar mentor from South Africa. She'll be here someday. She said this and she said that. So today you are here, and the audience is going to be hearing from you themselves. Tell us a little bit about what's first the word that the book is. You call it. Is that a Zulu word, and how do you say the name again?
Ubulungisa is
Well,
actually a Nguni word in South Africa. When we use the term Nguni, we collectively mean AmaZulu, AmaSwati, AmaXhosa, AmaNdebele. That is Zulu, Swati, Xhosa, and Ndebele. Because they once belonged to an empire called the Nguni Empire. It's history that's lost actually. Talking to ancestors and trying to piece it together, because the history that is more rampant is the one when we had already split into the four. So Ubulungisa is a concept that has no equivalent in English, which is the language that I use. I mean, we're a former British colony, because the easier equivalent would be justice. But we all know there's no justice in justice. The Western concept of justice is that the one who affords the best lawyer will not see a day in prison, and the one who does not afford a good lawyer even if they are not guilty, may see not just a day in prison, but years in prison. So I always be quick to emphasize that while the English equivalent could be justice, but it is a water-washed equivalent, because in its purity, Ubulungisa pre-colonially for Nguni people meant a constant act of balancing. It has a connotation of restorative justice, but it is more than just restorative justice, because Ubulungisa permeates all spheres of life, and gender happens to be one of them, and that's how it permeates gender. So Ubulungisa moves from the spiritual. The justice of the West does not move from any belief system. It's just justice, because the West comes to say matter versus spirit, where they say matter is scientific and it can be proven, spirit is irrational and emotional and cannot be proven. So the two don't match. But Ubulungisa comes from a merging of the two, where the science and the spirit come together, which is African spirituality, which is why it has a gender balance and a gender equity. So Ubulungisa constantly, it understands that justice is not a once-off concept. You constantly have to be balancing all the time, through the year, through the generations, through other spheres, not just gender, through the health, through the education, through the cultural practices, through the initiations. It's just a constant act of balancing.
Okay. Oh my God. So, audience, do you hear that? Stay with us. Stay with us today. A promise is to be fire, and your worldview is hopefully going to be turned upside down, and you will take away from a new day a new way of understanding our world system, because that's what a new day is about, is to challenge us to examine our way of thinking, our worldview. Why are things the way they are? We've always said it here, so that at the end of the day we can unlearn some things and learn a new way of life, or relearn some things that we have lost in the past. Mama, can you still, what time is it right now in South Africa?
It it's actually in the evening of Sunday. It's 16 minutes past 7 at night, so 1916.
Oh wow. Okay. How
So
is it?
yes, as you were saying, good morning. I was like, no, good
Oh, I'm
evening.
sorry. Yeah, actually, I consider in another part of the world. Yeah. It's morning for me. It's afternoon for Dennis. You heard you say it's 1 o'clock now. You want to go on? That was
Yeah,
1 o'clock for me, and then it's evening for you. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so good evening to our family in South Africa. Good evening, Mama Khanyisile, community. Good evening, from our end. I visited South Africa 2020, I know 2020, 2012, or 2021, 2012. I went to Rose University to do a course in media management.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow.
Sustainability and advertisement. Yeah.
Yeah,
So cool
wow.
over there. Is it cool right now?
Sorry, ask that again, Priscilla.
I said it was cold. I guess cold in South
Oh
Africa.
no, so I love South African weather because it has no confusion, but I exclude Western Cape, where Cape Town is located. I exclude them from this type of weather system I'm going to describe. So the rest of South Africa, in exclusion of the Western Cape, we have no confusion. We have 4 seasons of the year. We have spring, summer, autumn, winter, divided in 3 months of the year. So on September 1, it was Spring Day and we celebrated. So it's getting warmer. We are moving away from the winter. So by December 1, we start full blown summer right up to end of February. And from March 1, we enter autumn. And yeah, from March, April, from June 1, we enter full blown winter until end of August. Then September again, it's spring. So it's getting warmer. It's
Oh,
springtime now.
oh,
And coincidentally, September, for people who are in African spirituality, is a great month because that's when actually the African calendar ends the year. So September 23 is our new year, actually. And we do celebrate it. Those who are in African spirituality in South Africa, we celebrate it.
Wow. Oh my
Mm.
God. So New Year is approaching and the year is ending
Yeah.
for, yeah.
And a year is ending with its coldness. So our year starts with the promise of a spring, a regeneration, when the green starts getting greener and the trees start getting leaves and the first rains fall. That's our new year.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So what other things have you have been up to a lot? I've been following you. I saw you recently been traveling. Every time you're supposed to come on a noon day, and then you have to travel, and the time you are available, I have someone else. So yeah, that's why we haven't been able to have you on sooner.
Yeah.
So you've been traveling recently. The other day I saw you with the president of Burkina Faso. Also, what have you been up to? You want to tell us a little bit what's been going on?
I just feel that as an individual, as an entity called Khanyisile Litchfield-Tshabalala, we never lend support to our revolutions or to our revolutionary leaders. And then when they are
Gone.
assassinated in cold blood by our enemy, as in the Western forces, we then start saying, Viva Thomas Sankara, Viva Petrus. Now we start trying to pick up their spear. But when they were alive, we didn't show them the love we should have showed them. So I just felt that it was important for President of Burkina Faso, Captain Traore, to know that he is loved and emulated beyond Burkina Faso. But it's also important for Burkinabe people to know that they have a leader in office, because Western propaganda will go like it does with all our revolutions. It will go on because they own the media and convince them that he's a dictator, he's bad. They'll demonize him to a point where the population itself starts thinking, okay, but we have a bad leader in office. And by the time they assassinate you, the population does not care because they've bad mouthed you and demonized you so much. So I just felt that it was important to meet him in person and just let him know that in South Africa, while the government of the day, because they are selling out and they are controlled by their Western masters, have not come out and pronounced that we support you. Just know that ordinary people at individual level, like myself, like a General Quetta that I went with, like Advocate Nzo, like the lecturer at University of South Africa, David Litswalo, that we support you. We also had a member in our team from Kenya, Miss Ogweno. She also was there to say, while the Kenyan government might not have pronounced on you, but I, as an entity, pronounced. So that was the importance of the trip, just to show him love, just to show him appreciation, but also to affirm him, because when the whole world is against you, you begin to doubt yourself also to say, am I really doing the right thing?
Yeah, yeah,
Remember, the EU has not pronounced on him. In fact, the pronunciation that was made was by ECOWAS, led by Nigeria, where they demonized these coups. I think Nigeria even promised to invade Niger. They are putting pressure on them to restore democracy. And I'm just like, what has democracy ever done for Africans? From Ghana 1957 to South Africa 1994, this system that we so emulate as the alpha and omega of a clean government, what has it really done for us? I don't feel that there is only one way of democracy. I feel that there are instances where you do need a coup to establish order, but to also chase away, like Captain Traore did, the oppressor from the country. Because through a parliamentary system, they have failed in the Sahel to eject France from that region. France is still reigning, and they're reigning terror and poverty. France has left nothing in the Sahel except poverty and death. So that was the visit behind Burkina Faso. And if you're going to ask me, how was it to be in the same room with Traore? Wow, I think at my age, I did feel like a little girl. It's just, and not because I hero worship him, but to just be in the same room with a man of the soil, of such courage, of such knowledge, such a vision, because that's what we want all our leaders to be, male and female alike. Take a stand, don't put one foot in the West, one foot in socialism, and then whenever you talk of Pan-Africanism, but your point of departure and your disposition is not Pan-African. Hope I've answered you.
Wow. Okay. Now let's come to you as a person. Before we get into your work, I want people to get to know you a little bit more. How will you summarize yourself?
I always tell people this becomes the hardest part for me, to talk about myself. I don't know. I just feel like it's such a waste. We could be
Oh,
talking about
that about one thing.
something
Sorry,
I've researched. No. I will. I'll try.
there
But
was something you
I
always said
always just,
that you
I
loved
always
it.
just feel like we could be talking about something I've researched or a piece of knowledge I found. But yeah, I'll make it quick. I was born and bred in Soweto, Dube to be specific. Grew up in boarding schools until I was in grade 12. Then I went to Mletsane Senior Secondary, Mletsane High. And I think that's where I realized my passion for Africa was in the debating team. And I remember we had a topic at Mletsane that said, did colonialism civilize Africans? Well, you should understand, growing up in apartheid, the library was so limited. I mean, there was no social media, there was no Google. So it forced you to tap into yourself and to use reasoning. And I know I was in opposition. I was the ones that say colonialism didn't civilize Africa. But I was struggling so much to get the info, to get the facts to substantiate this. Because growing up under apartheid, I mean, the history started with the history of the arrival of the white men, the dromedaries, the Goedehoop, and the Drakensberg, those three ships that brought white people onto the shores of the to the shores of Cape Town, actually. So I think that was the first realization I had of knowledge is power, but also the first realization of saying, did we really get civilized by colonialism? What was in Africa before colonialism? I think I started grappling with those concepts. Then I was born and raised Catholic, but I think by then I had migrated myself into the born again fraternity. Yeah, I, through the born again fraternity, researching Christianity all the way up to the very first council, the one that Peter and Paul called, where Paul argued that Gentiles should not obey the Jewish law. And Peter said, no, but if they follow Christ, they must carry the full might of the law with them, and practice Judaism. I think, again, that became another point for me of reawakening. Like in Greek, they say kairos moment, a moment of truth, where I said, okay, so two humans got together, because I mean, they were humans, not their disciples, they're human beings. Two men, humans, sat and talked about us, the so-called Gentiles, and decided how we are going to practice our Christianity. That was one realization. But the second one also was, okay, so Christianity is in fact a cultural philosophy, because Paul argued they are not Jews, so they shouldn't practice this Jews. Oh, okay, so there's a lot of Judaism in this thing. So this thing is cultural. So I think on and on, I'll cut a long story short, the journey was a process to come to a point where I realized that, no, there was a God in Africa before Jesus descended on the shores of Africa. And we even didn't use the term God for us. We called them an originator, and that they were non-gendered, because we don't carve them, we don't show them. They are not as present in our lives as the Christian God is, for us to even make them an issue where we must carve them and put them on the wall. So it led me to another question. If then we didn't carve them and we didn't have a picture of them, who then, made them male? Because like for Zulu people, for instance, the term, pre-colonial term for the originator is umvelinqangi. Now a lot of Zulu people will tell you umvelinqangi is a man. And I always say, but how do you know that? Because we never carved them. And they weren't as present in our lives as the Christian God is. Secondly, we don't have gender grammar in our languages. So when I say Priscilla, I will also say Robert, which is a male. I hope you get the contrast.
Yeah.
So I say Umvelingang and I say Khanyisile. How then do you determine Umvelingang is a male when we don't even have gender grammar? So yeah, I think that was my journey, Priscilla, to come to where I am. And that journey has taken me thousands of years into before the common era, what Christians call before Christ. And what I found is the beauty of Africa. I mean, I'm not romanticizing it. I am not saying there weren't wrong things that were happening. I mean, there are wrong things even within the Mongoloid race, which is the Asian or yellow people. And I'm always told one of them is derogatory. I apologize. I don't know which one is. There is also wrong things that happened within the Caucasian race, that's white people. Obviously, there are things wrong that would have happened within us, which is the Negroid race, the black people, because there are only three races on earth. So I'm not romanticizing it, but at the same time, what I found when I dared to peep into before the common era of Africa really attracted me because I saw Ubulungisa, I saw the gender balance, I saw repentance after war. Nowhere does it tell me that after the Second World War, 50 million people died. Nowhere does it tell me the guns were washed and cleansed, the soldiers were cleansed, the land was cleansed. I found that when I looked into BCE, where I realized that while war is sometimes a necessary evil, but Africans were so anti war and pro life that even after that war, there was cleansing. People had to repent because they've taken lives. They cleansed the spears, they cleansed the battle axes, they cleansed whatever implement that society used to go to war. The soldiers were not allowed to enter their homesteads. They had to be held somewhere in a holding place where they were cleansed and had to repent. Their families had to be cleansed before they are reunited. The land had to be cleansed. Offerings were made, peace offerings to the land. So I honestly, when I peeped into BCE, I found beauty. And I followed that to CE, what the Christians call Anno Domini AD, we call CE Common Era. I followed that right up to around 369 before the Arabs descended on us with Islam. And I realized in the societies up to then that was still practiced. So when I peeped into Africa, I saw respect for life at the time before the contamination that we are in now. So I think that's me in a nutshell, and that gave me the love that I have for this continent. I love Africa, I think beyond I could ever describe to anybody. And I know I have posted this somewhere where I said I love Africa. In fact, somebody quoted me and posted it, not me, where I said I love Africa beyond my two children and my husband. And a patriarchal man said, oh, she's a dangerous woman. She loves Africa above her husband. And I was just like, this is such an empty vessel talking. That's how we should all be. If we all loved this continent beyond the common love that we have for each other, we would not be sitting in the quagmire that we sit in as a continent.
Yeah. Wow. You said, so I just want you to elaborate a little more on uh, um, Africa, the people of the continent were anti-war, anti, yeah, anti-war. Um, so yeah, unpack that because you said before that people fought only if they had to preserve life or to defend themselves. But beyond that, that was yeah. I want you to unpack the fact that you said they were anti-war, even though they were fighting war. So how can you say they were anti-war?
I think, as I said, people who normally joke about these things say there are two old professions to the human existence, whether black, white, or Asian. It is actually they say three. They say prostitution, espionage, and war. So war has been part and parcel of human life. So the Negroid race, my people, Africans, are no exception to that. But because before we're contaminated into what we are through two colonialisms and two slave trades, and a third colonialism actually now called neo-colonialism, we were pro-life, so we respected life. So while war would be necessary in some instances, it was still governed by laws. So you killed when necessary. and war was fought so peace could be achieved quicker. You know now, I mean, the Second World War lasted what, 1939 to 1945? In 6 years, 50 million people died. That's not a war, that's destruction, that's population reduction, I argue. So, yes, while we were pro life, war was necessary. But to show that the philosophy and the foundation is that of pro life, that's why there were so many laws that governed life, war. But also, that's why there were so many laws that governed post war period in terms of cleansing and to restore peace and to bring peace. Actually, we even have, because like in the culture in which I live, which is Nguni culture, Zulu, Xhosa, Ndebele, and Swati, when you say ancestor, you say abaphansi. That's like saying fruit or vegetables. Then you have different categories, and each category has a different function. So you have within this category of ancestors in Nguni language a category called abandawe, which are totally not related to you. Could be an ancestor that you unjustly killed at war, or you have wronged in some way and they died being wronged by your people. They will keep appearing in generation after generation until a cleansing is done to perform them so their soul can rest to restore them. Then they actually become part and parcel of your abapans or of your ancestors, even if they're not related to you. So that's why I used the phrase that we were pro-life, even if war was a necessary thing at different points.
Yeah. Okay. So you say there are only three races in the world: the Negro race, which is the black, and then the Caucasian, and then the Asian or
They are called the Mongoloid race. Anthropology will assert that for you. The rest are nations. There are only three races on earth. You have the yellow, the white, and the black or African. Well, I must be quick to say the three people don't fit the colors. You know, people will say, but we aren't black, we are brown. But I am using this terminology for people's understanding. White people aren't really white because they are pinkish bordering on other colors, but the word white is used, it's widely accepted. Some using it for a better understanding. So are Asians. I mean, not all of them are yellow. And in fact, if you put yellow against them, they aren't yellow. You know, it's a shade off, but that's the terminology that is used. Yes, the rest are nations.
oh, okay. All right. So in passing, you mentioned that how you grew up in Soweto and all of that, and then you were part of the debate team. That's what where you're joining for knowledge started. You started to research. I want to bring it to apartheid. Like, how did your experience growing up? Because that was another horrible experience, system of oppression. But how did your experience growing up on apartheid shape your views on your African identity? And how has that influenced your work on deconstructing gender in African spirituality?
Um, well, apartheid, I think let me put this disclaimer first. When non-South African Africans talk about apartheid, they talk about it as an exception. Oh, this horrible thing that happened to South Africans. No, apartheid was colonialism. You, as Priscilla Mabelo, might not have lived through the colonial era of your country. A Nigerian might have been born after Nigeria got the so-called independence. It does not mean your four ancestors did not live through what we lived through called apartheid. So apartheid was a continuation of colonialism, which was the same thing that happened throughout Africa, especially in all the countries which were what we call direct colonies, where there was a settler colony physically living there. The whole of Southern Africa were settler colonies. Kenya was a settler colony. I think it's safe to say mostly it's West Africa which were not settler colonies. And I think the writing is on the wall why. I mean, it's hot for a white skin, uninhabitable. For a white skin, our climates are cooler, you know, so they could settle and have a settler colony. Growing up under apartheid, I think made me question a lot of things about my people. I would say that also was a kairos moment for me because it was Group Areas Act in the literal sense of the word. You never mixed with Indians, you never mixed with the so-called coloreds, and I use the word so-called on purpose because I don't know what colored is. We can come to that towards the end of the podcast, maybe. I don't know what colored is. Colored is brought by a black and a white. So how do you become a race of your own? You are neither the race of your white parent or your black parent. How are you a species on your own? So yes, apartheid, it separated the Indian, the so-called colored, the white, the African. You never mixed except in town. And I think it just, if you have a critical mind, it sort of like makes you start questioning, okay, so I'm different from these people. But also you have your parents who work where they live. So, and they tell you the stories of the order, the big yard, the space, and you're like, oh, okay, so it's my space that's confined. It's my space that's not as habitable as it's supposed to be habitable. Um, and then there's an incident I think that has really shaped me in terms of apartheid, and I'll talk about that, and then I'll let you go to the next question. So the apartheid system had what it called, and all colonies had it, by the way. It's just that ours is fresh, and we have a generation that's living like me that has seen it. So that's something they called a passbook that would allow you access. That's how they controlled immigration and migration. So then I would wake up on a Saturday morning in Soweto. They ask you to go and buy bread. It's like 8 in the morning. And then you walk out and you look at these black men chained to a pole of electricity or to a tree with handcuffs, some two together, some three, some one. And then you look at them and you get home and you're like to your mother, okay, what's going on? Why are these men chained? And your mom will tell you, oh, they were asked for their passbooks and they didn't have them. It's a Saturday morning. Okay, so what's going to happen to them? No, they'll go to court on Monday, and then depending, if they have the passport, they will be released. If they don't, if they have one that does not allow them to be in Johannesburg, then they will be deported to wherever, to KZN or Free State or wherever they came from. And again, that sets you thinking, okay, so I need this to move freely. Yeah, I think for a 7, 8, 9 year old, that's very traumatic to see grown-ups chained like that with no power over themselves. And what they would do is they would chain them. Angithi, they are now going throughout. Soweto is big. So, because Soweto is an acronym for Southwestern Townships, I think there's close to 40, if not over 40 of them together, or 53. My husband is correcting me. So they would go around collecting, and then at the end of the day, they have this big truck. We called it Kwela Kwela, climb, because you had to climb high to get into it. Kwela means climb in Zulu, Xhosa, or Swati. So towards evening, then they would go collecting them into this. So imagine they chained you there at 9 in the morning, and we are standing there until around 4, chained to a pole, waiting for them to chain others so you can all be collected together and taken to the police station. I think it shaped me. That horror of apartheid and inhumanity really shaped me. That's why, Mabelo, I must say it on this podcast, and for all the South Africans who've tuned in, any self-respecting South African currently, who respects the ANC, truly must have their soul taken out of them, and a new soul must be given, not even the mind, because this is the same ANC that has forgotten all of that and went and affirmed the DA and given them ministerial and deputy ministerial positions. It's the same ANC that has gone and given a party that is number 2 a first-class vote, because by going into alliance with them, they've emulated them to governance when they were not voted for governance. So, no, that's traumatic. I will never forget that experience, Mabelo. It has shaped me. And it has made me even understand, today in South Africa, we say, oh, GBV is high, GBV is escalating. But it's like that even in African countries. I mean, I was watching recently, a Ugandan posted that their top runner was burnt to death by the boyfriend. We also had the incident in Kenya where again another top runner, I think it was last year, was killed by the boyfriend. So GBV is ripe in Africa, but we don't go and say, what did colonialism do? What did it produce? Because trauma and anger is intergenerational. So now I'm just thinking, those men that were dehumanized and humiliated in this manner, every Saturday morning. And remember, the trauma and the humiliation does not stop when they climb that Kwela Kwela. It will go on where they're going to be locked up, where a 19-year-old white policeman will call a 45-year-old man boy. And that's also happened in all the colonies. You know, a 15-year-old white girl during apartheid or during colonialism for the rest of Africa, I'm 62, will call me girl, and I must answer to them like I'm nothing. So I think for me that has stood out during the apartheid era. I mean, we can talk about the apartheid era for the rest of the podcast, but that's not the focus. But that's one thing that has stood out that I want South Africans to remember, lest we forget. Apartheid was a crime against humanity.
Oh my God. So, me, let me
I
digress.
think we need to welcome Dugu.
Ndugu,
Sorry, sorry, I know this has affected you. Sorry,
hi,
Madela.
Ndugu. I'll come to you so that you can introduce yourself, my sister.
Yes, yes.
I wanted to, so let me digress a little. So, off topic, but I think I kind of related. I think this is the experience that informs South Africa to take Israel to court
Mm,
because they understood this is what the Palestinians are going through. I mean, people come and occupy the land
mm,
for years. For when did that happen? I don't remember now. I did a post about it recently. But and say in the name of God, God gave them this group of people place. And in their own country, on their own land, they need permission to leave Gaza or to even move within
mm,
that in our open fence, open praising, as it was referred to even get food. And these people live like that. I'm not saying Hamas is right for the attack on
mm,
October, but
mm.
for people to fail to see, to fail to look at the full context of where this happened from, where they came from, where did this come from? Why did these people become so angry to do what they did? And this was not the first attack.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is, I think South Africa understood that. That's why they took this stand. That they was it your prime minister or who took the who went
The
ahead
minister,
the
the
meeting.
minister, Naledi Pando. I think my reflections on Israel and Palestine is that it is the same thing colonialism did. And South Africa becomes a perfect example because for us it's still fresh. I think the uniqueness of South Africa in terms of colonialism is the generation that experienced it, like me, is still alive, where they had a concept called Group Areas Act. That's why I said you could colored and African, so-called colored African, Indian, and white lived in separate development, separate schools, separate education systems, separate health systems. Your guess is as good as mine. Who was the number one citizen of the land? It was white, followed by the so-called colored. That's why I don't understand their outcry today when they say we are not black enough. But you were white enough to be second-class citizens, and you leveraged on it and called us kefas. And some of you even said, I don't talk the kefas language. So they were second-class citizens. Indians were third-class citizens. Africans were the dust of the earth, the scum of the earth, which the other three races could walk on at will the way they wanted. And they did. Let's not, kid love this thing. They did. And they know it. Of course, you had a trickle amongst them who didn't support apartheid, who joined the struggle. But by and large, they did because they enjoyed the privilege. Anyway, so that's what they did. Then they came when they realized that we are going to fight for independence. Then they carved out what we called Bantu stands, where they will say the Bantu stand for the Tswana people, for instance, of Northwest. They would carve it along the most infertile soil. And they would leave big towns as part of South Africa. I mean, it's nonsensical. The whole Northwest as a province today is Tswana speaking. And then you are going and carving it out and say these are South African Tswanas. These are Buphuta Tswana Tswanas. The South African, the Buphuta Tswana Tswanas need a pass the Israel is using on Palestinians. You need a pass to go and visit your cousin who has fallen in that cutting under the South African Botswana. They did that with all our 9 nationalities, the Zulu, the Xhosa, and the Rebele. No, they were carving out because they wanted us to believe it is some form of independence. It's the same thing that Israel has done. As a matter of fact, Mabelo, you know, we used to call apartheid Nazism, because Israel was their best friend too at the time, by the way, and even sold them military weapons when we were campaigning internationally for Israel not to sell weapons to South Africa. So any self-respecting South African Christian who today tells me, oh, they are the chosen of God and the Bible says we must love them, I'm just like, Israel was in South Africa when you were being bombed, when you were being told that it is a God-given right for white people to rule you and to reduce you to fourth-class citizens in your own land. I think for me, that's where religion really just capitulates on the table, because sometimes you truly have to be really stupid to take religion at its face value. I'm sorry. That's just a disclaimer out there. You truly, and I was stupid. I am the first one to agree, because I have fallen into that stupidity. And I look at my life then and now, and I can tell you up front, I truly was stupid, because my source of knowledge was such a box, to such a, just so stifling, because you couldn't even befriend people who are not of the same religion and thinking as you. It was not enough to be born again, to be a Christian. You had to be born again. And friends of mine who were Christian, not born again, I didn't put in the same esteem as those who were born again.
Yep.
I felt that I'm dabbling with demons in a way. So, no,
Yeah.
I understand why we supported Israel, truly. And I mean, just to finish this conversation, Jews had left that place for over 1,000 years. So I don't know what should happen. The Shabalala people we have established at a certain point in Dugu lived in Embo in Kenya. So must we amass all South Africans and we must just start arriving in Embo and say this is where we came from? It doesn't matter who lives in Embo now. It's over 1,000 years. You can't reverse history in that way. And if history truly is to be reversed, then white South Africans also go where they came from in the interest of reversing history. They're not originally African. So
Yeah.
if we use that argument and we say, oh, they've lived here, they're African. Okay, so Palestinians have been there for long. And I'm buying into the argument that Jews were there before the Palestinians, which is not true. But let me buy into that. Well, when you came back after 1,000 years, Palestinians lived there. So you should live there under their mercy. You should be talking to them, not bombing them out of their houses. And I mean, we cannot not call out America and Britain for this, because they're behind this. But also just to say how
Yeah.
stupefying religion can be. Do you know that Palestine was not the first place to be chosen as the promised land? Are you aware, Mabel? They chose Uganda first. They wanted to do this in Uganda. And I think they realized, oh, this is a big continent. It will not only be the fight of Ugandans, the whole of Africa will join in that fight to evict us. And then they settled on Palestine. So where's God's will and the word of God there? So who settled them there? God. So their God is mistaken. He wasn't sure where their promised land is. He first thought it's in Uganda. I mean, I think I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I just want to let you say, when you're talking about how
Hmm.
Christians, even South African, that have gone through this, but South African Christians to be supporting this kind of atrocity that is being minted against Palestinian. I just, anything that will stem on a sacred God name on it kind of get people afraid. That's
Mm,
why the idea that every religion is a deification of somebody's culture. It has
thank you.
like how religions are deeply intertwined with the cultures they arise from. To deify a culture means to elevate it to sacred status. So you
Mm,
already know that. So the point that they say, oh, this is godly. So if somebody is an African, you know that this system oppress you. But at the same time, they say this system is from the deity. So that cognitive dissonance is what people are in, and they're afraid of going to help. So in the case of Christianity, particularly as it was spread by Europeans, the religion
Yeah.
was used.
Just quickly, my honorable host Mabelo, you know, when you say it was God ordained and people start to shiver, you are aware slavery was God ordained. The Arab slavery was Allah ordained. The colonization was Allah ordained. The Christian slavery from 1400 onwards was Jesus and Yahweh ordained. Colonialism was Yahweh ordained. The natural order of things. Patriarchy is God ordained. So, I mean, I'm sorry. You're not going to scare me with that phrase. It's like
Yes.
slave legal. Slavery was legal. Colonialism was legal. To kill people during war is legal. 50 million people died, honorable members on this podcast and those who are listening. 50 million people, lives in 6 years. It was God ordained for
Yeah.
them to go to war against the scourge of Nazism. But at the same time, the Jewish banks supported Hitler and supported the Allied forces. I hope that Jews are aware. Jewish banks supported Hitler to kill Jews. The same banks supported the Allied forces to take Hitler out. I mean, I rest my case. This is business. It's got nothing to do with religion.
Yeah, it is political. Religion was used not just as a spiritual system, but as a means to deify European culture and Arab culture. So, by aligning Christianity with European norms and values and worldview, by aligning Islam with Arab norms and worldview, the religion became a vehicle for asserting their different cultural superiority, European cultural superiority and Arab cultural superiority. That's why we say the deification process wasn't just about religion, it was
Mm,
fundamentally political,
mm.
serving to justify these dominance, the different dominance, imperialism, colonialism, and transatlantic slave trade. But let me introduce our
Yes.
family members that just joined. Oh, let them introduce themselves. Sister, my own brilliant, straight to the point. Oh my God, this lady is something. I need her to introduce herself. Sister Nduku, introduce yourself, please, ma.
Thank you. The name is Nduku. I am the host on Kumbukeni. I am joining my sister Mabella, Dr. Khanyisile, my brother Oladele in fighting this war, because for those of you who have not gotten the memo, we are at war. We are at war to reclaim our culture
Mhm.
and to reclaim our being. So here we are
Yes.
fighting.
Yes.
Before you came on, the host was the CEO for this platform was helping us to set up. He was asking Dr. Khanyisile about Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, I said Sister Ndugu will be the right person will come on will respond to that for you. So maybe you want to throw a little light on Ubuntu. She explained to him behind the scene, but tell us the difference.
Yes.
Ubuntu.
So understanding Mama Kanyisile is the right person, I will say that, because she is more
Researched.
immersed is the word, more immersed in the culture. I have been detached for several years and I'm just returning. So I am a student of Mama Kanyisile's and many other elders, I will say that. But in listening to her, in reading others, I am learning that this is our way. And I like the way she puts it, that it is our common spirituality. It may be known as Ubuntu in the Nguni peoples, nations, but it is known as many other things, but still the same thing throughout Nsia Ubuntu Africa. And therefore, and
Yep.
I'm so glad for those of you who will get a chance to watch the session we just came from, that myself and Oladile just did with Dr. Robin Walker, where he explains and he gives you resources where you can get more information, but about the Swahili people. We have been told several lies and about this language. So we're now calling it Kubuntu instead of Kiswahili. And I was going to say quickly, I know this goes on the other direction. Hamas, what you guys are villainizing as Hamas is the same thing as the Kenya Land and Freedom Army. Hamas is equivalent to the Mau Mau
Mm.
because the Mau Mau were
Mama.
terrorizing the
To
British and
umkhonto wesizwe.
yes, And they were terrorizing the British, and rightfully so, because they had stolen and occupied their land, and they had taken it from them, and they were killing their mothers and their fathers and their daughters and their sons. And therefore, if someone is doing that to you, are you just going to sit back? And when you attack them and that person calls you a terrorist,
Yeah.
why are you following that? So Hamas, to me, power to them, is fighting for their people.
Okay. All right. So just so we know, I just want to throw the disclaimer out there that the views and opinions here on Focus on Liberia from the guests are their own, so that you can come down on Focus on Liberia audience. All right, but they have the
Actually, Mabelo, before my brother Oladele introduces herself, my sister, I call her my kid sister, Nduku. You know that the war on Palestinians since last year, October, is it last year, October?
October 6th.
It has produced more Hamas.
Yeah.
You become Hamas when everything of yours is taken away from you.
Yes.
When your house is bombed, when you are sleeping in your bed and you see a 6-month-old baby bombed to death, when you get out of that bombing and you see your mother's body split into 3, when a whole building falls on people and it takes 2 days for you to dig them out, when we are bombed, which is what apartheid did. All colonialism worked the same. I mean, Israel is a colonial state. When we are bombed, even when you try and bury those people in a funeral, when we are not allowed to exercise your own belief system, they can congregate on Friday as Muslims, they will be bombed. When you can't open your window, to open a window now in the occupied territories, in the Palestinian occupied territories, when you open your window, you are sniped by a Jewish soldier. When all of that, when your humanity, your respect, your dignity, your physical belongings, your abode, the primary needs of life, safety, accommodation, and water, when all of that is taken away from you, what is left? A hardened person. So Israel has actually bred people more brutal than Hamas. And when they hit back as a generation that is 14 years from today, I don't want to hear anybody demonizing because they will hit back and harder than their fathers.
Yeah. Mabella, in focusing.
The children are watching the parents being killed.
Mhm.
I listened to interviews on NPR, and then the investigators and the reporters are asking, why would this child? What would you expect him to do tomorrow when he grows up? He's are we trying to continue to raise or breed more bitter people, angry people, for this cycle to just continue?
Yeah.
Like Mama Khanyisile said before you came on, when Africans were fighting, it would be for the preservation of life, to defend yourself. I've been telling people, okay, quote unquote, they say Hamas attack, but did Israel have to go beyond? I mean, that is so disproportionate. That is not a self-defense. That is not a hating by because somebody hits you. It's like this boy always said, you and your little brother just fought because he threw something at you, and you go boo, 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 boo. You're killing him, or you're just paying your debt. I mean, let's be reasonable, my people. And then you will call that Israel defending themselves. Well, we see defense differently. But yeah, anyway, let me give brother Oladele before you came on. I was talking about you, and then I said Dele, and I don't know. I had a Nigerian brother who preferred Dele. I don't know whether he liked that. Then Mama Khanyisile said no, we prefer Oladele. I said okay, thank you for letting me know.
I like the full name, Oladele.
Yeah. So go ahead and introduce yourself, my brother, and y'all thank you and welcome to a new day.
Thank you, my community, because we're all one Ubuntu, like my sister would say. My name is Oladele Dosunmu. I'm the co-founder of Emerging Akebulan. And what Emerging Akebulan is about networking with diasporas and Africans all around the continent. We're trying to build a network of people who think like us and trying to bring us together. And what we're doing through Imagine Akebulan with myself and Unduku and Mama Khanyisile is basically getting the information out there. We're about decolonizing the minds of our people and awakening our consciousness. But for too long, we've been colonized in our minds. and our work is basically to wake us up. I would say, guys, we're at war. There's no easy way to say this. We're at war, and we need to get ready for the battle. Basically, we need to embrace ourselves and know who we are as African people. We can no longer use the European system to save ourselves. It's not working for us. So we need to find our own way. We need to find who we are as people and do for ourselves. In Ubuntu, Yoruba language is Agbajowo. We need to start working together. This is what we don't do, and we've been stigmatized for not working together, and it's becoming a perpetual thing. But we need to get away from that. We can work together. If we can allow, or we can embrace a Caucasian, and we can forgive him for all the atrocities they've done for us, what about ourselves? What about ourselves? So, guys, we need to work together. This is what we're about. We're passionate about bringing our Kebelans together. The more of us, the better. We need to keep funding ourselves, and that's what Emerging Kebelans is all about, my guys. And just that's a brief introduction. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Like you said one thing, and you say Audrey Lloyd, I say like this: the master's tools cannot undo the master's house. So we cannot use the same oppressive system to dismantle oppression. We cannot continue to use the same tools that keep us shackled to unshackle ourselves. We need a new day of awakening. So I'm glad we're doing this together, and I am so glad to be connected to you. I follow your work. You're doing so amazing. Damn, you're doing so good. I can be like, oh my God, where do they get? But I know you have the connection, the necessary connection. So yeah, you are making more. I think you are making great impact. So I'm glad to be connected to you. So you tell us a little bit about her book, because we haven't really gone into the book. We're waiting for you, and then I was asking her some questions about herself. But so you're
Yeah,
Before you go, let me get Mama Khanyisile's permission to quickly respond to something about Liberia, since we are on a channel about Liberia.
okay.
So I see there's a brother who had said Liberian civil war lasted for 14 years. I'm not sure what Mama Khanyisile's response was. I'm sure it was appropriate. But just
no, I actually haven't responded to it. Respond, I think I also want to
and please
respond.
add, yes.
Yeah.
Just
Sometimes
to
people just point
yeah.
and comment something. I try to stay with what I want to discuss. So
I see what you're saying, because sometimes they do derail you. Yes.
comments.
But to correct that that false narrative, there was a civil war because the people who returned, who were the descendants of enslaved Africans who ended up in the United States, they were returned to Liberia, and returned as if Liberia did not have people on it, returned for it to be theirs as if it did not have people in it. And when they went, they took a Western mentality with them, and they were behaving in this Western culture, subjugating their fellow brothers and sisters that they found there. And therefore, if you're coming in acting like the Muzungu and making me not be able to be myself at home, I'm going to fight you. So we have to be careful when we start repeating these things that white people repeat. Oh, you Africans killed yourself. You Africans had war. How did that happen? Who infected our culture? Who detached us from our culture that we started portraying these activities that are very brutal? So, Mama Khanyisile, go on.
You Africans killed yourselves. Wow, I just love that statement.
It's
There
actually
are
was
only three races on earth: the Mongoloid race, yellow Arab, the Caucasian race, white, the Negroid race, us. Which of these three races hasn't had wars or killed itself? As a matter of fact, I argue that the Arabs and the white people put together have killed more Africans than have Africans killed other Africans. I start there. Two, I keep saying the Second World War, which was a war of superiority between white people, it was a war of the male ego between Hitler and his other male counterparts. It killed 50 million people. Can you close your eyes and imagine 50 million corpses, guys? I know we always talk of 6 million Jews in that war. No, there are other 44 million lives that were lost in that war. Was it started by Africans? Was it an African war? I even argue why we call it a world war, Ndugu. It was a war between Hitler and his white counterparts to dominate the world. They didn't want him to because they also had laid and had designs on that. They want to dominate the world as they are doing now. So I never answer that, because when you talk like that, as Mabelo say, you get drawn sometimes into naivety. Because the social media, and I'm not saying this out of ignorance, I say this with all humility. Social media, while it has a good side, it has put marginalized voices on the platform. It has also put ignorant voices on the platform. The fact that you have 500,000 followers does not make you a fundi on anything. You could be the most ignorant person saying ignorant things followed by ignorant followers like you. So I don't even want to go there. You are right. Let's stay in our flow.
And you, Mama Khanyisile is right. The world right now, the higher percentage is ignorance. So
yeah, I do that. I stay focused, like she said. And I have people, including the owner of this platform, will be like, sometimes they will come on. They're just one person, they're just 3%. I don't care. Like I was telling her before I came on, I was just talking to my ancestors and like, I'm just grateful you're giving me this opportunity to be a part of unearthing your buried legacy. If there's one person today that will be awakened, let your spirit descend. You made yourself known to that person. Maybe not today,
Yeah.
but from this broadcast. So most times I don't really bother with numbers. I continue to assure him and others that, hey, don't worry if people tomorrow or after we leave, it might take 100 years, it might take 50, it might take the next 10, it might take 20. Somebody will click on this video and start learning something.
Oh yeah.
So the same Christians who say, and then Jesus, and then Jesus. Did that happen? Did that not happen years ago? But today people are killing themselves for this guy who doesn't even know them. So sometimes this kind of thing I just see to sow in the ground and leave it to germinate when it's germinate. So yeah, I don't really do that plenty numbers thing. And so yeah, let's just talk
the
about
book,
we can talk
right?
about the book.
The book. What you see behind me is the cover that we're going to have the book. And every time I have this behind me, Mama Khanyisile is just and having read the book as one of the people supporting Mama Khanyisile, I am getting the energies of the women behind me through everything you've written. The book is Ubulungisa, Deconstructing Gender in African Spirituality, the Untold Story of African Warrior Women. One of the things that I like, one of my favorite things about the book is the timeline Mama Khanyisile has there. The timeline. And I don't know, Mabela, if you want to share the link that I shared with you, where people can go visit and they can buy the book from there. Mama Khanyisile has a website.
I share at the beginning.
Yes, you can go to the website and
I can reshare.
click on the tab books, and it will take you to the different tiers that you can participate in to buy the book. We have different tiers. Yes, thank you. And so that timeline shows, the best thing about it is Mama Khanyisile shows through her research and her work, years, decades of African civilization, way before the Europeans even existed. Even existed. Forget about it existed and then invaded. Even before they existed, even before they decided that they were going to start showering and stop thinking that showering is a bad thing, we were civilized. We were processing metals. We were building. We were innovating. So for me, that's one of my favorite things that I appreciate about the book. But mostly, especially Mama Khanyisile, when you mentioned the women in Kenya being killed by the men, mostly because it is bringing back the woman's position in our community. Our family has been dysfunctional since she was taken from her position. And in order for us to heal our African family, she has to return to her position. And I appreciate that, that is the work Mama Khanyisile has done.
Thank you, Mrs. Sainbugu. Bella Oladele, you want to add?
Yeah, like Unduku said, when we're talking about African history, knowing the place and what a woman has done, because I respect my mothers, my sisters, any woman, these ladies know me. I respect. They bring the balance to our society. Without them, we can't be where we are. The patriarchal society is basically dehumanized. Is the word dehumanized? It basically belittled women. And Mama Khanyisile her book basically brings back to the time what we did, what the women, the African warrior women, what they stood for, how they fought for independence, and doing so many things that the patriarchal society is basically turned their backs against. So for my African brothers and sisters, wherever you are, Ubuntu means balance. Mat means balance. Women means balance. There's no person above the other. We work in sync together. And that's how we were. That's what our creator put in place for us. Then this got distorted. So Mama Khanyisile's book is basically making you understand the importance of women and what they did and how they achieved it. So basically highlighting who the African women are and what they've done. And respect to my sister, and I respect any woman out there, respect. Because as I am, as a father, as a granddad, and as a husband, I adore the women in my life and every woman around me. And I'm on this journey with these ladies. So thank you.
Thank you, Oladele. So yeah. So now, if there is, I wanted to read out the different. I thought one of you were going to do it, but do you want me to read out? You say I know Ndugu just said in passing there are different tiers, but I thought maybe to elaborate.
We can do it.
You do you want me to do it, Oladele?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Have you got it on you? Because you can do it because I haven't got it. I'm trying to do it, Ndugu.
All right. So the first tier is the bronze tier, which is $20. So this tier is meant for those people who just want to contribute. They don't really want to get the book for whatever reason, but they want to contribute towards the publishing. So this is a pre-publishing campaign, fundraising campaign. What the money will do is it will help in the process of publishing the book so that it can be released to the public. What does that mean? It will pay for the editor who's going to edit the book. It will pay for the printing with the printing company. It's going to pay for the cover page that we just showed for whoever does that cover, and the many other aspects that go into publishing a book. So the bronze tier is $20. For this, you get you can contribute towards the book. You get a personalized digital thank you note from Mama Khanyisile. And like I said, the website mamakhanyisilelt.com is where you can go and find the links where you can access this tier. The second tier is the silver tier, which is $25 per book. The book's original price, retail price, is $30. And by the way, these prices for our brothers and sisters on the continent, on our motherland, these are not prices for you. We understand that we're going to need to step these prices down because of what the economic hitmen have done in devaluing our currencies and our economies. And therefore, we have to adjust them to fit your income and your capability financially. So these are prices for our brothers and sisters abroad who are earning the dollars and the what do you call it in your country, UK? The pounds, yes.
The pounds. Yes. And the euros.
And the euros. These are the prices for you. The silver tier is $25 per book. It's one copy of the book at a discount price of $25 as opposed to the $30 retail price. You get the thank you note, personalized thank you note from Mama Khanyisile. But you also become a part of a closed community gathering. We had our first one on Friday, August 9th. It was a great session. Those who joined us, who have already supported the publishing of the book, were able to have an intimate discussion with Mama Khanyisile, where they were able to directly speak with her and get responses from her. The third tier is the gold tier. This is $200 for 5 books. You get 5 signed copies of the book. You get all the silver tier and bronze tier perks, and then you get early access to any bonus or additional content related to the book. As you've heard Mama Khanyisile speak, there's definitely going to be, usually authors are inspired by the responses that they get to their books once they publish them. And a lot of authors come back and decide to do new editions of the book to add the material that they may have missed or expand on something. And so for the $200 gold tier, you will have early access before those are released. And then the final one is the platinum tier. It is $500 for 10 books. You get 10 signed copies of the book, all the perks of the previous tiers, and an opportunity to have your name included in the book. When you open a book and you have thank you to all those, that will be where your name will be showing as one of the people who supported Mama Khanyisile's work. Essentially, that's it.
And can I add to that? What we need for this book is $20,000, guys. Mama Khanyisile is self-publishing. The reason for this is we don't not want those who don't sow to reap where they haven't put no seeds, man. She's done all the work, and we know how the capitalist system works. It basically gives you a percentage. So basically, she's put all her effort into this. She's done about 3 years of research into this book. So basically, we want her to reap what she's sown. And basically, that's why we're doing it, self-publishing, so she can get all the benefits and she can actually benefit from what she's done. And there's more to come from my sister. So this is the reason why we're doing this. It's $20,000. So if you see fit to give us more than we're asking for, please reach out to our sister on the platform. We need to get this book out there. And this is why we're doing this publishing campaign, just basically to get people's support to actually get the book published. And we appreciate you all.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, people, you heard it. I am going to have multiple copies because I'm paying for I don't know how many anymore, 200, so many. But yeah, so hopefully we will have Mama Khanyisile back, and it will depends what we'll be discussing, how you engage. I will be able to give you a price by sending you one of my copies. So we'll do that in the future. But yeah, this is just the introduction, introduce this great woman with the great wealth of knowledge and her team, so that we can, if you want, you can get it on your own, or yeah, seriously engage with the conversation and do your own research to move beyond just countering with shallow knowledge, like something that you just hear in the corridor that you haven't really put time into. If you have that humility for learning, you leave your mind open to hear from people who have put in the time, put in the resources and the effort. I hope some of us can really do that, to take our mind seriously. For people who are Christian, I always tell you, when you want to argue with the Bible, I'm like, yeah, you say we should love God, but this Bible say love God with your heart, mind, and soul. But someone, or just do it with our heart. Where is your mind? Because if you're loving God with your mind, you start questioning all these things in the Bible. I think that's how some of us started. Then we started finding out, no, they ain't right. Okay, yeah. So anyway, I don't want to go into Bible stuff. I'll leave it with our guests. Well, so my sister and my brother, if you want to stay on, you are welcome to, because I have a lot more questions to ask Mama Khanyisile. And you can just chime in every now and then. But if you have to leave, we'll understand, because you had a long broadcast and you just
Yeah, I think I'm gonna bail out. My wife is already asking me where I am, so yeah, I'm gonna have to bail out a little bit. Yeah.
And I'll stay because Mama Khanyisile has asked for support, so I will be here.
Okay.
But can I quickly, if you want, I can read a few of the quotes from the
quotes. Yeah. Go into that, please.
All right. And we can read one, and then Mama Khanyisile can speak, and we can read another if you want to do it that way. Bye, Oladele. Say
All right,
hello.
see you guys later.
Bye, Oladele.
Okay, bye.
Hi. So one of the quotes that I like is this one. How dare you forget an African warrior queen who humbled British soldier men at war? The great spirit of Svikiro and Mhondoro, who, when captured by the enemy in 1897, tried and found guilty by the authority of the British High Commissioner for South Africa, Alfred Milner, warrior queen Mbuya Nehanda Nyakasinana, did not shrivel, she did not decrease or diminish in stature or bravery. She chose death by hanging rather than convert to Christianity and revoke her great heritage, curse her culture, declare her ancestors demonic. Yes, death by hanging. And before the noose tightened around her neck, she defiantly told the British Red Devils, Mamfupa angu achamuka. My bones will surely rise.
My bones will surely rise. Oh, thank you for reading that quote. As you haven't seen my questions, but it was just in line. I was going to ask her, what was the most surprising thing you discovered while researching pre-colonial gender relations in Africa? So first of all, before you start explaining that quote, Mama Khanyisile, can you tell us what do we have? Is it gender people can say gender power relation, gender relation. What was that? What do we have?
We had gender relations demarcated by job description, for lack of a better word for job description. It was not power relations. So we never had
Each other.
a, yes, we never had patriarchy in Africa. We had patrilineality, we had matrilineality, but surprise, surprise, we did have matriarchy. So how do you distinguish the three systems? Patriarchy, as we know it today, is based on the man is the head of the house, therefore the children are the property of the man, therefore inheritance is by the firstborn son. Emulated in the Bible, women shall not teach men, women must learn in silence. Women are the weaker sex. The woman was deceived in the garden, therefore the woman is the deceiver of men. On and on I can go. That's patriarchy. Patriarchy is the system that says a man earns more than a woman, even if they're doing the same job. A woman is so precious, they cannot go into the defense force. A woman is so defiled, they cannot be priests or a pastor. So that's patriarchy. Patriarchy is the system that says dowry is only paid by the man to the woman, and in the process of that, it can even be viewed as buying. That's patriarchy. Patrilineality, on the contrary, is a system that says the children take the lineage paternally. It's not patriarchy. What's the difference? I'm going to use the Zulu people as an example. I think for you, Mabelo, coming from Liberia and Dugu coming from Kenya, when I say Zulu, the first thing that flashes in your mind is the machoism, the patriarchy, the testosterone that Zulu people have been portrayed to be through the legacy of Inkosi Shaka or King Shaka. It's actually not true. Because if you go beyond him and you go to a period of a king called Ndaba, who was the father of a princess called Mkabai, who had a twin called Mama. They had another sister, I forget her, all girls. If you look at that period before Shaka, that's the king comes after the King Ndaba, and then it's King Shaka. In that period already, Undaba then becomes Shaka's grandfather. In that period already, you do realize that Mkabai and her twin and their other sister, all three of them were commanding military battalions already at the time. So that's not, patriarchy would not allow that. But because they were patrilineal, the children took the heritage or the surname or heritage by the father. It did not then stop the king from appointing women as military commanders, because the socio-political system is not patriarchal, it's patrilineal. So while children take heritage by their father, it does not limit women in terms of rising into society and in terms of the things that they can do in society. I've told this story so many times. When the mother of the three daughters, Mkabai and her twin mama and their sister, when she dies, not having produced an heir for the throne, because they are patrilineal, the heir has to be a male. When that happens, a whole princess called Mkabai rises up to go and take a wife for her father. It will not happen under patriarchy. She's a woman. This is the preserve of men. She has no business meddling into the sex life of a king, even if the king is a father. She would not have had the guts to do so. But she does rise up and courts a wife for her father. who then comes and gives birth to the what we call indlalifa, or to the heir, who becomes a shaga's father. So that's patrilineality. It's not patriarchy. And then you get matrilineality. Oh, those examples are ample in Africa, where the children took the lineage by their mother. You know, they didn't take the father's surname. I think there's a lot of them. I think Ndugu can flash back when I finish and give us a few examples from Kenya. You then had downright matriarchies where you could not ascend the throne except you were female. The Kendake, a period of Nubia over 100 years, is one such example. But Nubia, even as an empire, is interesting to me because it starts in BCE. Nubia precedes Kemet, which is what has been renamed Egypt by the Arabs. So it comes before Kemet, and Kemet flourishes around 3,500 BCE, before the Common Era. But we can trace Nubia to 11,000 BCE. Remember, in BCE, it's a countdown. So 11,000 comes before 3,500. Nubia is already existing. And then Nubia continues all the way, even after Kemet, as a civilization is, dies down, and even when the Arabs come taking over, Nubia continues until CE period, which is the period we are in, which is called Anatomina by Christians. I actually calculated Nubia existed for 1,850 years. Now, Nubia kept changing socio-political systems. It makes sense. I mean, that's a long period of existence. So it was patrilineal. At some instances, it would be matrilineal, but in some instances, it would be downright matrilineal. So the over 100 years period of the Kendake queens was a matriarchy, where you could only ascend the throne because you were a queen. So yeah, I think for me, the gender relations then, when I say they were not patriarchal and they were not about power, that's what I mean. But more so, all gender relations on earth are ordered by the belief system. So now let's look at Christianity as a belief system. It's patriarchal. God is a man. The angels are little boys portrayed by the Catholic Church. The disciples, Jesus was a man. The disciples were men. The first priests were men. I mean, the oldest denomination or church, the Catholic Church, still does not allow women to be priests. They can only be nuns. So, but why is that? Because it is found in the belief system itself. Because the belief system is a belief system that says a woman cannot be trusted. The woman was weak in the Garden of Eden. She fell to the temptation of Satan, and then even had the nerve to deceive her own husband to eat what she had eaten. And then in the New Testament, I've cited the verses. I mean, we all know them. Women learn in silence. They cannot teach men. The man is the head of the house. It goes. So Christianity could not have ordered any other gender relations except gender relations of power. Because when you've gone and emulated a gender above the other, wherever they are underdogs, which is what we're talking about with Hamas and Israelites, you can't keep Palestinians in check forever. Even if they kill the whole of Hamas now, another liberation movement will rise. I mean, the PLO before, it will rise because that's the nature of the human mind. A human being was born free. They are not born to be oppressed by another person. So now, because of that condition, when they went and they said the man is the head, they immediately introduced the power dynamic, because now we have this man who has a God-given right to keep a woman in check and keep the women where they belong. It is the same system with race. So we never had that. So there is no way we would have had power relations. We had gender relations divided by job demarcation. And that job demarcation came from the spirit. Oh, now I remember why I told this whole elaboration. Because the gender relations are ordered by what you believe, there is no African spirituality that has a God that is a man. Either the gender is not disclosed, where it is disclosed, like that of the Shona Moari, it is disclosed for a function. So when the Shona people go to Moari and they want a favor, they will say, oh, the breasted one, they appeal, to the maternal instincts of Moari. They want to go to war, they go to the bearded Moari, the bearded one, the macho Moari. Now they want the strength to go and fight. So because of that, there is no way in African spirituality gender power relations of patriarchy could have been ordered. Because if you look at the pantheon. That's how it's called. The Christian pantheon is God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Then we have the Son come on earth as the male, as I said. Then we have the angels as men. Then we have disciples as men. We have the Catholic Church, the priest. Most denominations, when they started, it was male. Very few allowed women. Now that's the pantheon. If you look at the African spirituality pantheon, you have the originator whose gender is 99.9% not disclosed. Then you have a pantheon of what is called, trying to remember the name, deities. Yes, the deities are both male and female. Like the female deity, for instance, amongst the Zulu people is Nomkhubulwane, who is the deity celebrated now in September, the deity of fertility, of rain, of regeneration, because it's the beginning of the year, it's the first rains we want to plant. It's one of the biggest deities actually in Zulu cosmology, and she's a female. So in the deities, there's both genders. With ancestors, we know that's the living dead. The two genders, are represented. So there is no way African spirituality truly would have ordered gender relations that are patriarchal, suppressing one gender over the other. So I hope I've answered you.
And just to add to what Mama Khanyisile is saying, then you can imagine the Kenyan man who believes that they have a God-given right to rule the woman, and that woman being a famous athlete who's getting to be popular, who's becoming a woman in her own standing, who's not needing a man to speak for her, and she starts speaking for herself. That man will feel threatened. And that man, a lot of times, he wouldn't even let go of her and walk away, because to him, that's an embarrassment, and he doesn't want society to see him as a failure. So he will kill her because he has a God-given right to control her and to control her life.
According to the Christian religion and the...
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So
sorry, sorry, Mabelo. When you were talking, Dugu, I'm sure people saw me count with my fingers. I was actually counting from when religion descended on Africa with Islam in 369. It's now 2024. So I was counting the centuries from 300 and something to 2024. It's 17 centuries. 1,700 years of Africans not having self-determination, right to national sovereignty, right to territorial borders. Religion, imperialism, capitalism is dictating how Africa should look, who Africa's friends should be. That's why Islam currently has now teamed with Christianity, as in the French, and they are reigning terror in Burkina Faso villages because they want to tell Traore how he should rule and who his friends should be. So 1,700 years of nothing but patriarchal misogyny,
misruled.
male rule. You guys, you can help me add to this. Imperialism, capitalism, nothing but 1,700 years of pain for the African women. That's why actually in the book, the last chapter is a chapter that says, what has African women lost through colonialism? We lost the most. We have been the most pained, the most brutalized. We were downgraded from being procreators with the originator because we can give birth, where birth was seen as a sacred process which allows us to control agriculture. We were downgraded where birth is seen as a curse for having been deceived by the devil in the Garden of Eden. You shall now bear your children in pain. So even childbirth, Christianity comes to downgrade to demonism. That's how much we lost as African women. I mean, people really buy the book. That chapter, every African woman should read and see how we're downgraded, how far they made us fall.
Okay. So this is how they colonize.
Sorry, my sister. I think we should just read what Rudolf Nyenator has written for us here. He says there's a semblance of matrilineal awareness amongst the Grebos, my people. For example, the Barobos would prefer to a male child or by his mother's, or would refer to a male child by his mother's first name. They refer to me as Kwame Nyenator. My mother is first before me, a male, exactly. Yes, he's raising something very important. Gender for us is truly a social construct. It's not biology, it's not sex. That's why all the women on your father's side are mothers. We say malume. I've asked several people, I'm sure Ndugu will say how it's called in Kamba. They're all mothers. But all the females on your father's side, they are all fathers. They're called by male. For us, it's Rahadi. You know, Tate Bao, Bao is male. You know, Babegazi, Baba is a male. So he's raising a very important point to this discussion. Apart from not having gender grammar, for us, gender truly was a social construct. You were a male as a female. When time called for you to be a male, you would be a male. It did not change your sex at all. So yes, he's adding to the discussion. Thank you, Nyafor. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Just like him, Dennis, his name he told you, Chiwule, is preceded by his mother's name. So his name is Tane Chiwule. So his mother name is Tane and his name is Chiwule. The same way he told you he's Grebo, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so this is
It
where
did.
Nyanfo come from. So they are the same people.
Which actually explains why I also have two surnames right now. Litchfield is my maiden surname, Tshabalala is marriage surname. In Nguni culture in South Africa, as in Zulu, Xhosa, Ndebele, and Swati, women never changed their surnames when they got married. Like my mother was Madlamini until the day she died because her surname was Lamini. You couldn't refer to her as Ma Litchfield. I will be Ma Litchfield. I cannot be Mashabalala. My daughter is Mashabalala, not me. That's the patrilineal, because we follow patrilineality. So, you know, you keep getting these examples that gives you the semblance and the proof of the gender balance that existed in the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. In my own effort to recreate that, in my own effort to reclaim that, that's how my name now, Mandela. And I really appreciate that you choose to refer to me by my last name. So Mandela is my father's name. Bella is my mother's name. But I purposely made her name the last because when I went to change it, they didn't want to include a hyphen. And then I'm thinking there will be instances I have to spell this name on a document. They'll be like, it's too long, so let's call off the middle name. Let's remove the middle name. Then they will start chipping off. Also, if you say mutilating my name, they will start chipping off my mother's name if I make it a middle name because it's a female name. So I rather make it last so that if they have to chip off a name, it will have to be my father name. So my father name is the man, my mother name is Bella. So they are both of their name. I took in honor of them.
And I have a quote here that I would like us, if we still have time.
Before you
By
go,
the way, we never deconstructed the quote that you read out.
Please.
Oh yes.
I think she asked the question, what shocked me when I started unearthing the history of these women. So let's take Neanda Nyagasigana of what is present day Zimbabwe as an example. What shocked me with Neanda is how fearless she was. And please understand, Africans, you know, no one has no fear. Death is an unnatural process to human beings. We all fear death. So I'm not saying that she didn't fear death, but her love for her people and her respect for her spirituality and history and heritage overcame the fear for death. She was not going to convert to Christianity so that she can avert the noose around her head. She was not going to denounce her people and agree that they are demonic, that she needs Jesus to save her from those demonic people, just to save her own skin from the noose. So for me, the story of Neanda shocked me in realizing the power that embodies people who follow African spirituality. Because I had grew up all my life being told that African spirituality is demonic, Christianity has got more power, Jesus is more powerful than Christianity, and Islam are more powerful than our spirituality. So it's the first thing that shocked me. But also what shocked me is what she said, that my bones will rise again. and how in various epochs, when Zimbabwe needed a revolution or a renewal and a revival, the Nyenator spirit would be sweeping through. As a matter of fact, I call on all Zimbabweans who are listening now, and those of you who have Zimbabwean friends, what Zimbabweans are doing now is not in the spirit of Nyenator. You can't choose to pack and go and leave a dictatorial government and hope to God that the country will liberate itself. That's not what Nyenator did. Please emulate the spirit, great spirit of this woman. Go back and fight that oppressive regime for the sake and heritage of your own people. You can't have generations born in exile, when there's a black government in charge. When under Ian Smith, one of the most ruthless governments, people think apartheid was ruthless. Can I tell you, me who has lived in it, it wasn't as ruthless as Ian Smith. He ran a ruthless outfit. But when the spirit of Nyenator swept through that nation, Zimbabweans ousted Ian Smith. He had actually said on record, over my dead body will a black person rule Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. But they did it. What's stopping you now? What's stopping you now, fellow Zimbabweans? Go back and fight for your country. You come from such great heritage. You cannot be reduced to the fearless people running helter-skelter that you have becoming refugees all over the world. But you have such a rich heritage. You have such a rich and beautiful land. Zimbabwe is beautiful. Go back home.
All right. Ndugu, you wanted to read a second quote?
Yes, I think this one is very timely, given everything that's happening right now on our motherland. The African's disposition towards nature was that nature can do without humans, but not vice versa. For instance, in Kiswahili, the saying goes, itunze ardhi vyema, hukupewa na wazazi, bali umekopeshwa na dhuria zako. Take good care of the earth. It is not given to you by parents, but you have been lent it by your descendants. Herein lies the warning that our negative actions against the environment today become our children's heritage. They will bear the brunt of nature's wrath. Yoruba people have the same warning. Lo jeje ni, oh my goodness, I'm going to butcher this. Lo jeje ni agbayeti, oba ni ipalara, kolepada.
Billy already left.
Lord have mercy. Tread softly in the world. If it is harmed, it cannot return. isiZulu have an equivalent, albeit with a double meaning. Ishilala is
Isihlahla.
isihlahla
Asinyelo.
asinyelwa. Do not defecate under a tree just because you are done using its shade. You might need it again. Another meaning refers to human relations. Do not make enemies of a person because you think you are done needing them, for you might just need them again.
So all spiritualities are practiced this way. Nature is in you and you are in nature. That's why a tree is important. That's why a child will come to me and say, Mama Khanyisile, I don't know how to ukuphahla, that is prayer in African spirituality, for Zulu, Xhosa, Ndebele, and Swati. They will say, I don't know how to ukuphahla because I don't know who my real father is. And when I ask my mother, they become very angry. So I don't know how to connect with my paternal side. And then the culture says, the culture says, that's not a problem. Go and find a flowing stream or go and find a tree in the forest. That you see is very old. It has got deep roots and you can do that under that tree because that's a neutral land. It's no man's land. And when you do it, first acknowledge abaphansi bendawo, which is ancestors of the place, because there are people who owned that place before it has become what it is now. So first ensure that you give respect to them, and then you can do your thing. It then becomes a neutral ground. So that's why for us, nature is important. That's why land is important for us. So yes, that's why we respected nature so much that we knew we can't live without nature, but nature can live without us because nature was part of our spirituality. Nature was part of what they would call a mosque, Muslims, what Christians would call a church, what Jews would call a temple. For us, that's what nature is. That tree is important because I might need it in performing the rituals I need to perform for my spirituality. That stream is important. I cannot be throwing used napkins into it. I cannot be defecating into it because I might need it to go and wash. I might have incurred such bad luck that it's not enough to just take a shower. I need to be dipped into that stream and taken out. I need that mountain. So you can't start burning those trees because it could get so bad in my life, in my need to connect and cleanse. I might need to climb up to the highest peak of that mountain. So that's what all these sayings are saying in Swahili, in Yoruba, in Zulu, and I'm sorry, there is much more in all other African languages that prove that for us, nature was important. Nature was in us and we were in nature. So the global warming we are having now, we need to just point this out very quickly, Mabelo and Dugu, my kid sister. The white man has caused global warming and they are continuing to cause global warming. So now I don't understand when people tell me white is right and white is might. No, guys. No, please, can we decolonize language? White is stupid and white is weak. Because why has whiteness declared war on the environment? Why did whiteness declare war on another race called Africans? Why did they declare war on another race called the Mongoloid race? On Asians, they colonized as far as Asia, by the way. So, no, let's just call a spade a spade. It is whiteness that has caused global warming. And in not respecting nature, they have shown their stupidity, their arrogance. And now nature is hitting back and we are all suffering.
It's funny, Mama Khanyisile says that, Mabella, in my people's language, the Akamba people, we have a song that was taught to the children. That essentially the song is about a man who's going to visit his in-laws, and he decides to defecate in the wood on the way to his in-laws, and the poop follows him all the way to his in-laws, singing to him, rolling, rolling, rolling. We're coming with you to see your in-laws. Essentially,
Wow.
to discourage people from pooping, because you don't want to go see your in-laws with the poop that's following you. But yes, it was even told in things like that, where a children's song, and I have sung it to my own children. That where you're essentially being told to take care of nature. Mm-hmm.
And in that instance, Ndugu, pre-colonial African culture, virgin pre-colonial African culture would have said, we understand that you can't hold it until you get your in-laws. So in the instance where you have defecated in the forest or under a tree, dig and cover it. It will become manure. Because if you don't, you have dragged us all into your defecation. That's why it will follow you to your in-laws. Wow, I like that rhyme. Is it in Kamba?
Yes, it's in Kikamba. Mbingilite, mbingilite, twadhina ku, mbingilite, kwa mudhoni, mbingilite, kuyaka kima, mbingilite.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, my sister. Okay. So now that we understand that Christianity was used uh, to support imperialism, colonialism, enslavement, and I mentioned before, it effectively deified European culture. And the same thing with Arabs when they did the same thing to Islam by positioning it as the standard of civilization. Christianity's spread was not just about converting souls, but about reinforcing European cultural hegemony,
Of course.
defining what was civilized and what was savage or hidden. So this enabled European powers to impose their social, political, and economic system on other cultures, often violently and under the guise of divine mandate. Because I know you said before, when I was going to ask, why did they remove women from all the spiritual position? And I so and respond to that, because those are conversations that other people here were a part of, but you and I talked about it. So tell us, why did they remove women from spiritual positions in African spirituality and
Um, I'm
Christianity?
I'm so happy you are asking that, Mabelo. Truly, the ancestral spirit is here with us and it's alive because they didn't start with African women. In all spiritualities, women are at the epicenter. Whether that spirituality, you find it amongst the Mongoloid race, or amongst the Caucasian race, or amongst the Negroid race, as spirituality in essence, its foundation is matriarchal, because spirituality moves from the premise that a woman gives birth. Therefore, because they give birth, it means they have a certain understanding of creating life. Therefore, they become in charge of agriculture so they can touch the ground and bless it with the fertility of their wombs. And because of that, women are also then allowed to lead the chart in spirituality, because it is thought and assumed that because they are procreating this life, therefore they are closer to the spirit world, which is why Ma'at, for instance, for Kemet, becomes the judge of the souls in the underworld. She's the one that brings the tapestry together. She's the one that collects it all under one. So I'm glad you asked that. They didn't start with Africans. They started with their own people. In Europe now, there's also a resurgence of European women who are saying, what were German women before German women were German women?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yes. What were Scottish women before Scottish women were Scottish?
Are awakening now.
Going back to the nations, and that's a podcast on its own. For the sake of our people, we should have it. Because the nations you see in Europe today are not the original nations. If you look at the Celts, the Scots, and the Welsh, for instance, they come from what was called the Celtic people. The Celts. The Celts were highly spiritual. As a matter of fact, they aced time travel. That's why when you see a lot of movies that depict that era about the Scottish people, it will depict how they time traveled. They aced time, because time traveling is part of spirituality. So what then Christianity did was take out the white woman first. There was an era that was ordained by the Pope called the era of the Inquisition, where the Pope dispatched with authority the inquisitors to go from village to village, burn at stake or murder women who were in spirituality.
Yeah.
The term, when people are not, the term is eluding me, but I know you'll know it because you're a lawyer. When we don't take you to court and we decide that we just get together and we decide that we are guilty, what do we call it?
Oh,
Mob justice.
It's not jungle. It's not jungle law. I'm trying to.
what's it called? Oh, God.
It will come to me.
Banana Republic?
No.
No.
That term comes from that period of Inquisition, because these women were never taken to a formal court of law where they could defend themselves. They were sentenced solely on the evidence of what the villagers are saying. We saw Ndugu look at the moon during full moon and speak to the moon. Every night we see Ndugu disappear into the forest. Therefore, Ndugu is a heretic. She is anathema to the Catholic Church. They took out all those women. Most of them were burned at stake. Some were crucified upside down. Kangaroo court. Thank you, Nyamfor. A kangaroo court. It's not based on any scientific evidence. In fact, we hardly prove the crime that you get found guilty of. It comes from that period of the Inquisition. The women were taken out because, again, to force convert the whole of Europe into Christianity, they had to take the European woman out, who was the one holding spirituality. Same pattern in Africa. By the time they came here, they had perfected that mode. That's why when they came here, the African woman was the first person to be taken out. That's why even Christianity, the woman is the first thing Christianity takes out. Right in Genesis.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, guys, right in the beginning of things.
Yeah.
The woman is taken out as the beguiler, the deceiver of the men, the deceiver of mankind, the deceived and the deceiver. Downgrade her right in the beginning of this belief system, so that as the belief system proceeds, she becomes nothing but the dust of the earth. So I hope I've answered you why the African woman was taken out first.
Yeah.
When you take her out, you weaken spirituality, you weaken culture, you weaken agriculture, you force convert all Africa into the cash crop. You put men in front and you pay them, and what has happened to our soil?
Yeah,
The
you just
the penis was put on the soil, but the penis, its semen, when it falls on the ground, it dries. But when the womb touches the soil, the fertility of the womb transmits its fertility to the soil. And I know people who rebuff out of ignorance will say, oh, what about women who have no children? It does not mean that they still do not carry the fertility of the womb man. They still have a womb.
yeah,
I
yeah.
hope I answered you.
Yeah, I think our people understood this because they know it needed a woman for a semen to go get into a womb for it to get life and to produce human beings. And even with the Bible will say before something could live, it must die. You must die before you are born again. Uh,
Mm,
and but sometimes again, that's why I continue to tell my fellow Christians, what how are we not loving God with our mind? The Bible will tell you your first birth is not real because that one is tainted with original sin. So you got to be reborn. Well, who gives birth? They say you got to be reborn in a spirit because they want to erase women role. So we have God the Father who is a single father. He ain't got wife. He doesn't impregnate anybody, but you become born again in the spirit because they wouldn't give a pronoun she or her to the Holy Spirit. So it's always the Holy Spirit, God
mm,
the Father, and then they have a son, God the Mother, no, God the Holy Spirit. So you see no woman in that picture. You know
mm,
what it does to your mind psychologically?
mm,
No woman in the picture. This is like you have been saying, it's just a system, a political system, a cultural system that was removing women. A picture in that system is just patriarchy.
mm,
How does a father or parent or God doesn't have a mother but got all these children? How does this God create us, male and female, to reproduce of its kind? Were made in their image, but then He is one. It's only Him.
mm, mm,
And somehow
mm.
He made of His kind a female, but then we cannot say God the mother. So,
I
yeah.
like to give the example of race when you talk like that, because remember the first pictures of God was the white Jesus hanging in on the walls of the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church and the first denominations that came here. Now, play this out in your mind, honestly, and I've played these games with white South Africans in defense who were genuine and honest enough to understand the concept of racism. I'm not talking about those who are still stuck in their racist mode. They will tell you, look, when we are white, it's almost like you have to struggle not to be racist. You have to struggle not to have superiority complex because the whole world is curtailed to affirm whiteness and to degrade yellowness or blackness, the other two races. Because God is white as God came into the two continents of Asia and the Christian God to the continent of Asia and Africa. Came as a white God. The angels are little white boys. The Jews are depicted as white. Um, and melanin, now we must talk about a period which is in the book called Scientific Racism. Melanin was seen as dirty and you are not showering enough, that's why you're dark skinned. I mean, hell, Hegel even had the nerve to say Africa is not in history. Hegel, the founder of communism, by the way, and socialism. Hegel even had the nerve to say Africa is in prehistory and not even in history, and that it is the sun that has bubbled up our minds and slowed our thinking. So with all of that, and while the era of scientific racism came to an end, the belief system did not change because the whole world is curtailed around that. That's why in Africa there is Ramadan on television, but not African spirituality holidays. There is Easter and Christmas on television, but not African spirituality holidays. I mean, the new year of Africans starts in September. There is nothing on South African television that even talks about that. I don't think our government even has interest to even talk about that. But on 31st December, it will be everything. Happy New Year. You'll see the signs, the towns will be decorated. So, you know, the white people that I had honest conversations within the Navy would say, we see that you are a reasonable person. Try and put yourself in our shoes and tell us if you would not feel superior if you were us.
Right?
The whole world circulates around whiteness.
Yeah.
Now, it is the same concept with patriarchy. If you are a Christian and everything centers around maleness, why would you be a Christian and be gender inclusive? Why would you be a Muslim and be gender inclusive? Right. Why would you be a Judaist, the three religions of the book, and be gender inclusive if even praying in the same room is not allowed? Oh my God, honestly. Honestly.
We are not allowed to preach to you, to talk to
you. So it is the same thing with race. If you want to understand patriarchy as an African, understand the race concept. I mean, as you and me sit here and talk, it is only in about 5 African countries where Africa Day is a holiday. But in all of them, Easter and Ramadan are holidays. Christmas is a holiday. So if you are a Christian, why would you not look down on African spirituality?
Mm-hmm.
Because Christianity is a state religion. It keeps being renewed and beefed up by the state system and the democratic system that we are all told is good to everybody. It is not good to me as a person in African spirituality because it does not speak to my holidays. It does not speak to anything that I do. Now, if you understand that, understand gender then. There is no way African men are going that they will not declare war on us. There is no way we cannot see a high level of GBV in Africa because we have gone and made the African man god of the house where he wasn't before. We killed the African originator and replaced them with maleness and with whiteness. That's why the African woman suffers even more than the men. The man suffers the wrath of whiteness. We suffer the wrath of whiteness and the wrath of the black man. It's painful.
Just to add to what
my heart goes out to African women. Honestly, keep fighting, African women. Keep yourself of sanity, because the system out here right now, honestly, is trying to reduce us all into a mental asylum.
Quick question, Mabella, before you go on, to add to what Mama Khanyisile is saying. If this God that we have chosen to believe in detests women so much, why does he assign the most important duty to the woman?
I don't know.
In life?
So honestly, I have discussed that. I have written about that. You know, I do a lot of blogging. I have, but I agree with you. I see the question. I hope we think about that. I'm grateful. This kind of conversation, that's what I keep telling us, is for us to think. Why are things the way they are? You know, Mama Khanyisile said, why wouldn't I like something she said, that some of the white people talk to her and say, you are making great points, because she's a scholar. She's found herself in a kind of cycle presenting, and to be like, but the world is built around elevating us. So I mean, it's subconsciously we consider ourselves superior. And that's what I tell men when I'm writing. I'm like, especially Christian men, who would be like, well, God said that the woman should submit, but he told us to love your woman when she submit, love her. Don't step down on her. It doesn't mean subordinate her. And I'm like, God leaves you that responsibility to be the one who will be kind. God gave you the power to be the benevolent one. If this God is fair and just, God did not just do it outrightly from the beginning. God gave the power to mere human being like you, where he know human being have the tendency to be corrupt. When you have power, that we can wrong, we can miss the way. God will give you the power to be able to control yourself, how to treat somebody equal, and God just didn't do that from the beginning. Then that is not an okay God.
I am getting a message even as you shared what you just shared. My kid sister Ndugo, it is then fair to say God is the first one to introduce conditional love in sexual relationships. Love this woman because she's timid and surrendering to you.
No, you mean a Christian God.
Yes, that's what I mean. The Christian
Yes.
God. I mean, that's what we are talking about.
Okay.
Love this woman only when she's timid and surrendering and kneeling at your feet.
Mm-hmm.
When they dare to question you, then no, they are no longer lovable because they are not submitting to you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Why then do we blame men for calling a woman like Mabelo, you, my kid sister Ndugu, myself, and all the other women who are like you and me of this world? Why do we blame men when they call us rebellious, untamed, too,
Extreme.
too authoritative,
I they call
too
that
much? They call us too much,
much intense. Extreme.
intense.
Not only do they do that, they say that when we are those things, we are no longer woman, we are manly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Don't mind him. Well, let me read my brother statement so that I can go to the next one. He says some of us African men are rethinking patriarchy. Good. That's what we want. That's what we're having the kind of conversations for. We're glad for people like you, yeah, who have the ability, the capability to rethink. Uh, he said we have daughters. We are allies in our sisters and daughters' struggles for equality. Thank you. Thank you, my brother. I know you. And I,
Thank you, my brother.
yeah, I follow his work. He's a blogger too, and they journalism.
Thank you, Nyamfor. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Please get us more men who think like you.
I know, I know, I know. That's my good brother. Okay, so now that African spirituality is often mislabeled as witchcraft. And so people are afraid to even talk about it openly. I have a friend who the other day called me and was like, "Hey, somebody was saying, did you watch your friend Priscilla broadcast today?" And then I was telling the person, why should I watch her broadcast when she elevated witchcraft and making it fun and referring to it as African spirituality. So, people are afraid to even talk about it. So, where does this fear come from? And how was this demonization ingrained in us during colonization?
Thank you, Mabelo. I'm looking at the time. For me, who is in SA, it's already 21:11. So I think we'll deal with this question and then we'll deal with one last one.
Okay.
Well, it is normal. It's funny, the spirit really speaks. I love the ancestral spirit, and maybe it's because we did the right thing when we started Mabelo. We invited our ancestral spirits of Africa in general. Because yesterday I was watching something on TV and a message was given me for today in a phrase, but it's also my Twitter byline, by the way.
Okay.
When the West colonized the world, they colonized epistemology. What is epistemology? Epistemology is the study of knowledge. How do you gain knowledge? What do you define as knowledge? Now, that was given to me because the person on TV was trying to explain the same thing. In fact, it's a documentary called Colin in Black and White. He was saying, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But what if the eyes have been colonized? It means beauty is not in the eyes of the beholder. It is in the eyes of the colonized eyes. Hey, I hope I'm making sense. Now, I was reminded back to my Twitter handle and my byline. When they colonized the world, they colonized epistemology, which means what Africans even define as knowledge is colonized knowledge. How we get to knowledge is itself colonized. Now, let me come to answer your question. Why do most Africans say African spirituality is demonic? Because they were told so by Christianity and Islam. Isn't it? When the colonizers came here, both Arab and European alike, they did not want Ndugu because it was a heathen name. You had to be Ibrahim. You could not be Ndugu. You had to be Mary or Magdalene for the Christians. For the Arabs, you had to be Ibrahim. What are other common names amongst Arabs? What are other common names? You had to be
Abdullahi, Muhammad.
What are the common female names?
Fatima.
Aisha.
Mm-hmm.
Fatima. You could not be Khanyisile. You could not be Kama. You know, Kama, they will even tell you, are making it even harder for Europeans to pronounce it. Find a better name. So our names were called heathen. Our foremothers and forefathers were called demons. That's why we needed to be saved. We needed salvation, either into Islam for those who were colonized and converted into Islam, or into Christianity for the greater part of Southern Africa for those, you know, who faced a Christian colonization. Now they had another system. Funny that we were talking about it yesterday also. So say they come to a community that has got 10 villages. And amongst these 10 villages, 3 villages convert to Christianity. Remember, they are now the social services dispenser. The colonial administrator is now the one dispensing social services. They've taken over your land. So they've given you little plots that, you know, sometimes are not even viable for agriculture. Now they will take these 3 villages that have converted and put them on a pedestal. And the rest of your villages, in Xhosa, they would call them in Zulu, Amaqaba. The Xhosa people have a name, actually. You know, I must get to it. It also has a click. In essence, it promoted uncivilized, demonic people. And then these 3 villages who are the example that the rest of the 7 must follow. And then they will instigate the 3 villages to start looking down on you. And then they will even arm these 3 villages to declare war on you, because you, the 7 villages that are not converting, you are bringing bad luck on the land. You are making the land unproductive with your heathenness, because you are refusing to accept Christ and receive blessings and have a new dispensation. So it has a history, that thing of saying African spirituality is demonic. Actually, every African who say that, I just say, my God, if you are 40 years of age, you are still colonized at 40. If you are 50, truly at 50, you are still colonized. Remember, for the first people to whom Islam and Christianity came, it was the barrel of the gun. A lot of them were first converted, like Nyenator refused to convert, and they hanged her. You know, she was beheaded for it. Now, for people today with so much social media and so much knowledge, the 21st century is called the information age, or the age of knowledge. If at 50 you are still calling African spirituality demonic, my brother and my sister, that's stupidity by choice. There's no other way to define it. It is stupidity by choice. If you still think Christianity is the only religion and the rest can go to hell, that's stupidity by choice. In the 21st century, you're stupid by choice, honestly. So yeah, that thing is historic. It is the Arab and the white person that called our spirituality demonic, and Africans have been running with it because epistemology is colonized. What we define as knowledge and how we get knowledge is demonic. You see, for Christians, Nyenator does not matter, but the Virgin Mary matters. For Christians, Mujaji 1 and Mujaji 2, the founders of the only surviving matriarchal reign kingdom in Southern, they don't matter because they are nothing but demons. The Virgin Mary matters. Saronia Mango, who shape-shifted into a panther to avert being beheaded by the French for refusing to convert to Catholicism, she does not matter. She's not even a martyr. The Virgin Mary matters. So you understand? Because these are cultural constructs. Christianity is a cultural construct. And as a cultural construct, it had to bring down the other cultural constructs for it to stand. And the best way to do that was to demonize them. Now, Africans, because they're still mentally colonized, because the epistemology is colonized, they have not deconstructed other ways to get to knowledge. They still use the colonial one, which is colonized. They will rock up and tell you it is demonic. Actually, what we are saying, you should be asking me, because I have been, I think, to over 30 African countries now. And in some of them, when I say I'm in African spirituality, my hosts quickly say, shh, don't proclaim that out so loud. And I say, why? They say, because, it's witchcraft. And I say, why is it witchcraft? There's witchcraft and there's spirituality. The two are not the same. There are demons in Christianity. Does that make Christianity demonic? Christianity believes they are demons. And we've seen them being cast in the Christian ethos from Genesis to Revelation. Does that mean Christianity is demonic? So,
Yeah. And you said they will be like, well, people would think that you are a witchcraft, and you can be like, what? I don't care. I know I'm not a witch. I'm a spiritualist. Yeah. Okay. So, uh, um, where was I going to end? And you said one more. So now that African people, for us, African people, as well as other colonized groups, adapting Christianity without understanding this deeper political context, it means participating in a deification of a culture that is not ours, and internalizing European cultural supremacy or Arab cultural supremacy, and by extension, the devaluation of our own indigenous spiritual system and cultural identities. This result in a marginalization of African spirituality and spiritual practice and traditions. But Mama Khanyisile, you said it can be, we can walk away from that. Somewhere you said uh, um, we can make a comeback.
mm,
So, how did you embrace African spirituality? African spirituality is a personal journey of decolonization. I think I heard you say that before.
mm.
How did you begin this journey? And what advice will you give to others who are looking to decolonize their minds and reconnect to our heritage? Because we put a lot out there today for people to chew on, to think about. And then if somebody decide, how do I retrace my step? Let's begin with you as a person. How did you
Well,
journey back?
I'm not even going to personalize it to me, because I want Ndugu to answer also, because she runs Kumbukeni, and I know this is very central, having engaged her. She does
Oh.
not call, in fact, makes her very angry. You can even hear the tone of her voice changes when we talk about this. Change your epistemology. Change how you acquire knowledge and what you define as knowledge. Why have you allowed a race that came forth around 800 BCE to dictate to you a race that was here for thousands of years in BCE? As I said, I can trace Nubia to 11,000. And that's not the first civilization. Because you have in South Africa one called Inzalo Yelanga in Mpumalanga. That's 200 and something thousand years old. How do you allow a race that came about around 800 BCE with the Greek Empire, then gave birth to the Roman Empire and the nations that are in Europe? How do you allow, in South Africa, I would say Jim comes to Joburg, to tell you who is God and what is religion and what is knowledge? How do you allow that? I mean, that's why I say you truly have to be stupid as an African, and we all were. We start there with stupidity because it's systemic. You have to be stupid to believe a race that was born in 800 BCE, dictating to a race that existed for thousands of years by the time that race came, which is why Nduku loves the timeline, because it shows when they came onto the face of the earth and what we had achieved leading up to that. It's really stupid for you to allow them to dictate to you what is knowledge and how to gain knowledge. Besides, what have Westerners ever given us that is truly liberating? Why would you allow them to tell you
Gender
what is
equality. They say they're breaking gender equality through the UN.
Sorry?
Oh no, I was responding to your question. You said what have they brought to us? I said gender equality. Remember they bringing gender equality. That's when Mama Khanyisile can say we were doing that before they came and this
Before,
the
exactly.
whole thing and say Jesus said no.
Yeah. I mean,
Now,
what have they ever given you that has truly affirmed you? They came here to civilize us. Are we civilized? Look at the mess they left behind. Underdevelopment, stealing our minerals, killing and raping, pillaging, enslaving us. So why would you allow such a nation to start telling you, man, you know, some of the things even make me angry because you shouldn't even be explaining them. That's like preschool and grade R knowledge. A man cannot burst into your house, rape your daughters in front of you, rape your wife in front of you, amass everything that is in your house and make you live in your house like slaves, and he's the Lord. And then after some time, the same man turns around and say, by the way, I don't think I like your ethics and your morality. I am here to teach you better ethics and morality. And I see you guys kneel at the corner. I don't know which God that you are praying to. That God is a small boy compared to the God of rape and pillage and land grabbing that I'm bringing here. That God is better than your God. You truly, I mean, honestly, guys, I rest my case. I shouldn't say anymore.
Sister Nugu, you got something to add?
I missed the question because I was typing as you were saying. Please repeat the question.
The question is so now we know that we've been talking about it, right? That the people of African descent engaging in Christianity, in Islam, in the other imported religion without acknowledging how it has been used politically, risks unintentionally reinforcing these systems of oppression that deify someone else's culture while denigrating our own culture. So if somebody now is thinking, oh my God, they have shared some things. Now I want to embrace African spirituality. How do they begin this journey? And what advice will you give to others who are looking to decolonize their minds and reconnect with their heritage?
And
So
my kid sister, sorry, I had started by saying change your epistemology.
Yeah.
Change what you define as knowledge and how you gain knowledge. I think, yeah.
You're right, because some of these people will go straight to the what
The
are they
Bible.
called, the universities, and want to get a doctorate in African spirituality. That's where they're going to go, and they will seek what are they called, intellectuals with doctor and this and that title, and make them yes, you're right, Mama Khanyisile, you have to change your mindset as far as how you look at knowledge. Two things before I give my answer. Number one, I recommend everyone who is listening, if you can get access to this book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, or the
Hitman.
new book, New Confessions of an Economic Hitman. This is
And how
Mzungu telling you everything we've been talking about from experience in his own words, so that those of you who are calling us racist, those of you who are calling us hateful, can hear from the Mzungu himself telling you exactly what they do and why they do it. And Christianity is covered in the book, and the church is covered in the book. But
can you put a name in a
I will when I finish speaking. Yes, I will. For those of you who are being offended by being called stupid by Mama Khanyisile because you follow Christianity, because I know Christians, you're very fragile. Because you've taken on the Western culture, which is very fragile spiritually. So I know it's hitting you hard. This is the description of stupidity. Behavior that shows a lack of good sense or judgment. Behavior that shows a lack of good sense or judgment. The way I have done this journey, because I was Catholic since I was born. My first name is Joan, and I was given that name after Pope John Paul because he was in Nairobi the day I was born. So I was very much as stupid because I was behaving in a way that showed lack of good sense or judgment for many years before I stopped and started. And it started slowly. I would go to church. It started because I was in boarding school as a young girl. And in boarding school, I remember the first time this came across my mind. The head mistress of my school, I was in primary, I still wasn't in high school, was a nun. And all of a sudden we were told she's leaving because she's become pregnant. And we asked, who made her pregnant? The priest made her pregnant. So I'm sitting asking, and the priest continues to come on Sunday to tell us how to be good. And you've been telling us all this time the nun is married to Jesus and she cannot defile her body because she's married to Jesus. She's keeping it pure for him. But now she has defiled it. Not only are you, first of all, you're punishing the nun and not the priest. The priest continues to preach to us what is right and wrong. So that's when I started questioning. And then the other time was when I was told I have to go to confession in a booth and confess to a man. And by the way, these men in my home where I come from were coming to our house for drinks with my parents. So I saw them coming to our house for drinks and misbehaving. But that same man is who I am going to go to the booth and confess my sins to. These are the things that you have to ask yourself. And it was very hard to realize. Mentally, it was very hard to realize that what I had believed for so many years was a lie. But I had to get over it, because the stupid thing to do is to continue believing it once you've realized it's a lie. That is the stupid thing to do. And therefore, I started reading. I started engaging with people like Mama Khanyisile. You have to go back. The simplest way to reconnect with African spirituality is reconnecting with nature. That's the simplest way, honestly. Reconnect with nature. Within nature is African spirituality. And in fact, African spirituality is that interaction with nature and with every creation. But again, watch out for the zealots. Mama Khanyisile will tell you there are people out here pretending to be African spirituality experts, but they are not. So again, keep your wits open and always in check. Critical analysis. That's the best thing I can advise you all. Critical analysis. Always question everything that you encounter.
Yeah, thank you. And like you said, go to this. I like something you said from the beginning. You say, some of you, I know you're intellectual, you want to go to the library, you want to talk to scholars, you want to go and do your research at the universities. But you know, Dr. Ashebe was on here a few months ago, and she said I did 33 years of research going back and forth from the US to Nigeria to visit shrines of our people, to sit
Exactly.
with the elders, to spend months in the villages. That's where to go, because the knowledge that I've compiled in my research that I'm sharing here, you will not find it in a run of a mail textbooks in a library.
I'm glad you said that, Mabelo, because I did something last year when I went home. And the way I approached it, because my father is still Christian and my uncle, the way I approached it is, Dad and uncle, could you sit with me and tell me the history of our family? And within that sitting, they told me about what we were doing before outside. And then they say the Catholic priest comes and this is when we start following this. And I ask, what did we do before that? That is how you get that history. And that is how you reconnect with your way before Christianity.
Yeah, she said that. She said because what you will find there, most of those that wrote it, they were government paid um historians, you know, people who took accounts for the government. They're not going to write something to promote African culture, the good side. They didn't even talk to women. In fact, those were, you know, those were very misogynistic people. They didn't even talk to women. So she says, so I took all these years, like 30 years or plus for my PhD, to go back and forth. So now you don't have to go do what when these people, you don't have to do what Mama did if you don't want to go back there in a village. These people have already done the work, they've done the research, they collect,
Yeah.
they live on the ground, they compile it. Get her book. The link is here in the comment section. Get her book. Get these people book. Like Indugu say, watch out for the zealots, the African spirituality expert, because now it's becoming training. Everybody is going there. Be careful who you are learning from. Critical thinking is encouraged. This is not a system where don't question God before you enter in hell. No, I think African spirituality is open-minded. You can go. I mean, Mama Khanyisile has always said it. Africans didn't kill each other because the Yoruba believe God this way and the Igbo does not believe God that way. They all accommodated and they recognize that the culture is unique in each group. Mama Khanyisile, she was just responding to the question, then I went for
I could hear.
okay. All right,
Mhm.
so now as we wrap up, is there anything you want to end with?
Yes, I want to end with two things. The one you alluded to just now.
Please.
Nowhere in the history of Africans has African spirituality gone to war because of African spirituality. Zulu people have never fought with Xhosa people because Xhosa people use the sheep and they use the goat. I'm making an example. Because Xhosa people make their umqomboti, which is the traditional beer you use in African spirituality, because they start making it on Tuesday and these ones start making it on Wednesday because they serve it before the food and the others serve it after the food. Nowhere in the history of Africa, and we are the oldest race on earth, have we ever gone to war with each other because of spirituality. So it's safe to say our spirituality has never killed anybody, but Christianity has. Actually, research was done. Christianity has got more corpses underground than the state, than any other state, and than any other religion. And I have remembered the word I was looking for, Ndugu. It's called witch hunt. So the inquisitors from the Pope would go village to village
Okay.
looking for white women witches. And you were qualified as a witch because you were practicing spirituality. That's where the word witch hunt came from. And in that era alone, I don't know how many people, how many women the Catholic Church alone has killed, actually. My second one and a parting shot is that I was stupid too, like you. I was raised Catholic. And can I tell you? Because Catholicism also is the belief system that says you can't marry outside Catholicism. When you marry someone, they must come and be a Catholic. It presupposes itself as the only denomination that is rightfully going to heaven. Hence, the Pope is the vice of Jesus on earth. He is the vicar of Jesus on earth, or the representative of Jesus on earth. When I was raised with that, without my choice, because Catholics baptize you as a baby. So even by the time I'm 8, 9, or 10, I mean, I'm sprouting Catholicism out of my mouth like it is my pre-colonial destiny, you know? So I was stupid too when I was there because I used to feel sorry for my non-Catholic friends, my neighbors, those I went to Catholic schools. So it would be my friends who didn't go to Catholic schools. I would feel so sorry for them because I would just look at them and think, my God, their parents are so stupid. If only they knew that they are making these children lose their way. Then I moved from there to another judgmental Christian system, the born again or the evangelical. Again, how sorry I used to feel for people who had not accepted Christ. I remember standing by my father's bedside in hospital in 1980. I was doing grade 11, and my father had diabetes and gangrene, and I mean, he was on his way out. I remember I couldn't even have a conversation with him, how I cry for that lost moment. I couldn't converse with my own father at that moment because I was overcome by the grief of him going to hell because he had not accepted Jesus into his heart, because he was Catholic and I was now born again. It makes you so judgmental. I mean, I remember how I hated a whole group of
I,
people, different sects of people, and I had no reason why I hated them because the religion had told me that they are not part of my fold. I mean, I would feel guilty giving money to a non-Christian who was in need, but they were not born again, because I would just feel like, I have planted, but I've planted in a demonic soil. Someone is asking quickly, was there a connection between African spirituality and Mfekane? Mfekane is the Nguni for Zulu, Xhosa, Ndebele, and Swati. The Sotho people call it Difekane. That was state formation. I've talked about this in many platforms, Nyamfor. Every community amongst the three races has gone over what is called state formation, where the bigger swallow the smaller in the building of a state. That's why the Zulu people grew from a smaller nationality to a bigger one. It was a period of state formation. Is there a connection between it and spirituality? I suppose, for me, I could say the connection for Zulu people was that Shaka came to disrupt. Because remember, he gets born in a period where Zulu people themselves are becoming patriarchal. From where? Because I've just given a history in the same podcast that shows that they were patrilineal, not patriarchal. So he gets born in an era where we are losing it as a people. And I say we, I'm not Zulu, but I'm counting myself for the sake of the podcast, where they were now judging so harshly a child born out of wedlock, illegitimate, we shall not accept them. Shaka, I believe, was raised in the spirit world by the Zulu cosmologists to come and disrupt a narrative that says you're born out of wedlock, therefore you're nothing. You're born out of wedlock, therefore you're not fully human. We shall ridicule you. We shall scorn you. We shall reduce you into nothingness. That's why even his praise poetry says, uteku lwabafazi bakaNomgabi abatekula behlezi emfuleni bethi uShaka kayibusa kanti mayizawunethezeka. He was the gossip of women even when they went to the river, who were saying he will amount to nothing, but he rose to become such a powerful figure that grew the Zulu people to the mighty people that they are today. So yes, in that sense, it was spiritual because he came to disrupt so much. Nandi, the mother, was beguiled and treated like the scorn of the earth, but not Shaka's father, Senzangakona, who was king and the one that had made her pregnant. So we were slowly becoming patriarchal, moving away from patrilineality. And I believe Shaka is there to show us that when ancestors have their mark on you, it doesn't matter if you are illegitimate. And in fact, to even use that name is unfair on an infant. So it doesn't matter what society says about your illegitimacy. It doesn't matter what society says about your mother. When they have a mark on you, you will become what your destiny is. So I think in that sense, Nyamfor, I mean, this on its own is a podcast. We can talk about this as a podcast because someone would say, okay, what then on the other people on whom, who were disrupted at the time during that time of state formation? But I guess that's an answer for another podcast.
Okay, all right. Oh my God, this has been.
Can I say one last thing, Mebola?
Go ahead.
So Judaism teaches you hate, right? And if you doubt that, look at Israel and Palestine. Christianity teaches you hate. And if you doubt that, look at the history of Christianity in Europe. Islam teaches you hate. I know you Muslims like to claim that Islam does not teach you hate, but it does. That's why you're out here getting people to believe in Allah, right? Because according to Islam, if you do not believe in Allah, you will not rise to paradise. So you're teaching.
But also, you're an infidel. They even have a word for it. Yes. Same as Christians who call you heathen or demonic.
Yeah.
We have no word by which we call people who are not in African spirituality.
That's what I'm saying there. African spirituality does not teach hate. And therefore, you have to step back and ask yourself, these three teach hate. Mine doesn't. Then why am I abandoning my way?
Word. What a word in Ndungu. African spirituality does not do this. First, how you call it word? To evangelize.
Yeah. And we don't evangelize. Yeah. We don't go around telling you to sign up or you're going to burn in hell because we do not believe in that, right? So the thing I am advising everyone is to be okay with being uncomfortable for the sake of getting to a point of well-being, because we are already uncomfortable. We are uncomfortable, but we are dying. We are uncomfortable, but we are unhappy. We are uncomfortable, but divorce rates are high. I'm saying we are uncomfortable as far as the system we are in. You go to work, you cannot be your black self. If you show your blackness, you are fired or you're called into the office to be corrected. So we are already entertaining discomfort, but not for our well-being. So be okay with entertaining discomfort for your well-being. Because what do I mean? For you to be told that what you have believed for years is wrong will be very uncomfortable. It was for me.
Yep.
But be okay with it so that you can heal, so that we can move to a world that is life-giving and not death-giving, because today we are currently in a system of death-giving everywhere we go.
Oh my God. You're done, Mama? The both of you are done?
Yes. Yes,
Oh,
I'm done.
oh wow.
I
Oh wow.
think Ndugu has ended it very well.
I'm
Be
going,
prepared, be prepared to be uncomfortable for your own good,
yeah. I'm going,
not not for the good of the system.
nope, nope, nope. Be prepared to be uncomfortable. Yep, yep. I'm going to play this on drum and then I'm going to close us.
The talking drum.
Mama, you want to close back thanking the ancestors and yeah.
Yes, when we do this in my culture, we don't even need to speak because this is not the same as this. When I do this or I do this, I'm praising you. But when I do this, I return glory to all the forebearers, thousands of years that have preceded us and left us the legacy of the knowledge and the wisdom that we shared today in this podcast. So we're gonna do this. It's enough without words. Togoza.
Togoza.
As we wrap up, remember, people. Remember that colonialism was more than just about taking land. It was
Mm,
about shaping our minds, our cultures, and our spiritualities. As the
mm,
speakers have told us today, our guests have told us today. If we want true freedom, we must start by decolonizing our minds. Our sister
mm.
said, prepare to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It doesn't kill. It just you just yeah, it's being not comfortable. It's not really harmful to the point of death.
Mhm.
So thank you, our sister.
Change your epistemology. Change
Oh,
what you define as knowledge and change the tools you use to gather knowledge.
Mm,
change those things.
mm.
Change those things or examine, revisit. Yeah, look at them closely, question them. Maybe start from there if you still want to hold on to them, but start questioning. But at the end of the day, you will have to make change, no matter how hard change is. So be prepared to do that. Thank you, Mama Khanyisile, for joining us today from South Africa. I know it's late at that end. Ndugu, where are you? You're in the US, right?
I'm in the criminal enterprise, the mother of all crime. Yes, unfortunately.
What part of the US are you?
Let me not say that in case there are heathens come to get me.
Yes, I don't want you to say it either.
Okay, that's fine. But thank you for once again for enlightening us on the path to rediscovery. People, don't forget to visit Mama Khanyisile website and pre-order your copy of Deconstructing Gender in African Spirituality, the untold stories of African warrior women. How do you say it again in your language?
Ubulungisa.
Exactly. Please go on her website and order that. The website is in the link. I mean, the link is in the comment section. I'm going to share it over and over again. Go there, pre-order your copy of Deconstructing Gender in African Spirituality, the untold stories of African warrior women. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and most importantly, know that patriarchy is not African.
Mm,
And y'all stop telling me you yet preaching gender equality. You know you African, oh, you come to America, you want to American with Americans, they not teach us to treat each other as equals.
Mm,
Our foremothers and forefathers
mm,
were like that. They went ahead, these white people went ahead and Arabs and destabilized all of that. And for centuries, they disrupted our people way of life. So we try to find our way back there, and then they're coming back to us and telling us is the millennial development goal to teach us to treat each other as equal because gender equality is concept from there. It's not true.
mm.
Patriarchy is not African. Thank you to our viewers for joining us today. Let's
Asante.
continue the download. elevate our voices and actively participate in shaping a world where social justice isn't an aspiration alone, but a reality. Join us next time on a new day as we continue to explore and advocate for social reform. Remember, change begins with a conversation. Let's make every day a new day for progress. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. How do you say the word again?
Thokoza.
Ubulungisa. Oh, Thokoza.
Ubulungisa.
I see Dennis joining us to end. Dennis, you want to say a word?
No, just say thank you for coming. We really appreciate your time and we
Asante.
learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Asante.